Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Am I just up? I went to a shrink to analyze my dreams. She says it's lack of sex that's bringing me down. I went to a whore. He said my life's a bore. So quit my wife cause it's bringing her down. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Grasping to control, so I better hold on. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Am I just
haven't changed, had much to say. But man, I still think them cats are crazy. They were asking if you were around, how you was, where you could be found. I told them you were living downtown, driving all the old men crazy. The boys are back in town, boys are back in town. I said, the boys are back in town. Chick that used to dance a lot, every night she'd be on the floor shaking what she'd got. Man, when I tell you she was cool, she was red hot. I mean, she was steaming. And that time over at Johnny's place, well, this chick got up and she slapped Johnny's face. Man, we just fell about the place. If that chick don't wanna know, forget her. The boys are back in town, the boys are back in town. I said, the boys are back in town. right, you better let 'em. That jukebox in the corner blasting out my favorite song. The nights are getting warmer, it won't be long. Won't be long till summer comes. Now that the boys are here again. The boys are back in town, boys are back in town. The 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 boys are back in town. Spread the word around. The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. The boys are back. The boys are back.
I guess I got to come on here for you to hear me. It's because I forgot to mute the other one, the other screen when I was playing the intro. But anyhow, what's good, everybody? Appreciate you, everybody that's here. I appreciate all of you for showing up. Hopefully we can, it was extra rhythmy. Hopefully we can get some people in here, man, and start getting this backup channel build up like we were finally starting to get the main channel. That way we can continue to have the good discussions and whatnot that we've been actually having here as of late. I don't know what's going on, but the main channel ended up getting another community standards violation the other day. Around 12:01 in the morning, after I was done doing a stream on another channel, I was checking mine and got hit with a content strike, or a community standards strike for what was it? Election integrity misinformation again. I don't know what the deal is with all that shit, to be honest with you. I know I'm getting sick and tired of it. But I guess you guys that are here, help share this out. See if we can't get some of the regulars up in here that know where we're at now. If you do talk to them, let them know that I have actually pulled all the content on the main channel and made it that's because I opened up another window. Is that better? I closed it. I don't know, man. This shit's getting crazy. But anyhow, do me a favor and yeah, it's when I open up another window for some reason. Anyhow, let's try and help get this channel grown. I'll actually drop the link for the panel, because I'm sure Cyber will at least want to come up and go over this Rogan and Zuckerberg interview with me. And if not, that's cool too. Fuck you. But let's try and help get this platform grown, and then while we're doing that, I'm already going to have a third channel in the works in the background that I'm going to link everybody to eventually to get that one going. But that's what I was saying, on the main channel, I've actually made all the content private right now until this 90 days is up that I got to do, and we'll see how it goes from there, I guess. And if you send it, if anybody goes over there to check the old channel, if you go to the about me section of it, it actually tells. I'm letting everybody know what's going on with it, and I got the link, redirected them to this channel over here. I don't know what's going on right now, to be honest with you. It just seems like I just found it weird anyhow that I got hit with the same thing, and I just come off of a strike 3 days later. There we go. Do it that way. Do it this way. Google. I think that's how I'm logged in. Hold on. I think it's that one. Hold on, fellas. Damn it. Damn it. Hold on. I'm trying to get this to where I can open it up on the computer instead of the Spotify app. It might get fuzzy for a minute. Just okay. That's what it is. There we go. All right. Yeah, now there we go. We got it going now. We'll do it that way. That way I can open it up in a tab and maybe it won't mess with it. All right. So, yeah, what we're going to do is I'm going to go over the Joe Rogan podcast with Zuckerberg. We'll listen to a little bit of the beginning of it, but most of the beginning of it is pretty boring and slow. They're just talking about the Oculus and Meta and all that shit. There we go. Do it that way. I like that. But yeah. Drop the link one more time if anybody wants to hop up. Out of the whole one or two of you that's out there. Hell, it's probably me at this point. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get into this and discuss it a little bit.
Experience.
Trained by day, Joe Rogan podcast.
Or if you pout or whatever, you're present with each other, right? It's not phones, it's not computers.
There we go.
There was an avatar in front of me, and it was an alien woman. And the alien woman, when I moved my mouth, she moved her mouth. When I moved my eyes left and right, it's tracking my eyes. When I make like an angry face, like it makes an angry face. When you go like open your mouth, it's incredible. It like you can see the evolution and the progress of this stuff, where it's getting to the point where it's mimicking human patterns in a kind of a creepy way. But it's very cool.
Yeah, so, for me, the stuff is all about, like, helping people connect, right? I mean, the way that I got into this is, I don't know. I just started thinking about, like, what would be the ultimate expression of basically people using technology to feel present with each other, right? It's not phones. It's not computers. Like, how do you get this sensation of actually being present, like you're right there with another person? And that's, to me, what virtual and eventually augmented reality are all about. And there's just this whole technology roadmap that we basically just need to go run down over the next decade to unlock that. So for the next device that's coming out in October, there are a few big features. I mean, the one that you're talking about, basically social presence. I mean, the ability to now have kind of eye contact in virtual reality, have your face be tracked, so that way your avatar, it's not just like this still thing, but if you smile or if you frown or if you pout or whatever your expression is, have that actually just in real time translate to your avatar. I mean, that's obviously like our facial expressions are just a huge. That's like a there's more nonverbal communication when people are with each other than verbal communication.
You had a really good point.
Like I said, I'm just going to play
face tracking and
a
like
little bit of
if you're
this,
doing like a FaceTime
maybe
call,
10 or 15 of the minutes at the beginning of it,
each other in the eye
at the most,
because
and then we're
you're
going to
looking
get
at the
into
camera
the
to look
part
in the
that
eye, and then
I
you don't
think
see
is
the
most
person. So if you
important.
look at the camera, you're looking up, and if you look at the look down at the actual screen, you're not making eye contact with the person. But this is able to recreate actual eye contact.
Yeah.
With the avatar.
Yeah, no, this will be the first time really to do that. I mean, when we're using technology today, I mean, it's great to be able to make phone calls and video calls and all that. I mean, if you can't be with someone today, it's nice to be able to see their face. But when you're on a video call, you don't actually feel like you're there with the person, right? I mean, you get some signal, some information, you can see their face, but the whole time you're kind of trying to convince your brain that you're actually there with them. But your brain knows, right? It's like at kind of like a deep level.
Yeah.
That's you're not actually there with them. You're just getting some information about what they look like. And to me, what virtual reality unlocks is it basically really convinces your brain that you're there. I mean, when you're in there, you have to basically try to convince your brain that this isn't real, right? And that you're not present. So
yeah.
And there are all these just subtle signals. And things that either deepen the illusion or break it. That each time we do a new version, we just try to break down a few more of the barriers. So, I mean, one of the big ones early on, well, the first one obviously was just like having a headset and be able to look around. And for that, one of the key things that your eye basically refreshes, I don't know, call it every 5 milliseconds or something. So if you turn your head and the image isn't kind of refreshed to where you're looking within 5 milliseconds, then there's this huge mismatch between your visual system and your vestibular system and your kind of balance in your ear. And people used to kind of feel uncomfortable from that, right? Because it's like a physical discomfort because it like what you were looking at didn't match kind of as you were rotating your head. So that was kind of the first thing.
Anybody who hasn't actually used one of those Oculuses, me personally, I think the whole thing is uncomfortable, to be honest with you. And it makes you, it's weird how after being in it for a while, it makes you actually feel kind of nauseous. It is the only way to describe it. I mean, you feel like you're going to get sick after a while, and it causes strain on your eyes and stuff like that. So, but Cyber said, dude, Zuck is suggesting that we make artificial interaction more personable. Does he not care to mention that these programs could be synthetic robots that can emote in real time? Are creepy as fuck, and that is really kind of creepy as fuck, but it is what it is.
Then we got hands, and there was this whole thing that was super interesting there, where at first we wanted to display your whole arm, which makes sense, right? Because I mean, it's you'd think, okay, it's a little weird to just see your hand, but it turns out that your brain is perfectly willing to just accept seeing your hand without your arm, because your hand is the thing that it's trying to manipulate. And as a matter of fact, when if we kind of interpolated and got your arm position wrong, right? So we'd get into these cases where your hands were here, and we'd sort of guess that your arm was like that or something. And if your arm was actually like that, but we displayed it so that it was in like that, you're like, my elbow's broken, right? It felt like really wrong. So it's actually much better to show a limited number of signals, but get them right. And then you could just add on over time. So for previous versions before this, we didn't, the kind of eye contact was all just, AI simulated, but we didn't actually know when you were making eye contact because we weren't tracking the eyes. And now for this version and hopefully a lot of the different ones that we build going forward, you'll be able to, have realistic facial expressions and and more translated directly to your avatar. But there's this whole roadmap of basically how do you deliver this like real sense of presence, like you're there with another person no matter where you actually are.
It was very impressive because even when I moved my jaw side to side, I went like, it did that. It made the O face like, ooh. It's really interesting. And you were saying also that the way this is tracking is you're doing this without putting something on your body, without putting trackers on your body. But do you ultimately think that that's like, are we going to go Ready Player One where you have like a haptic feedback suit and you have to zip this thing up to get into a game and in that way you're going to be fully immersive?
Actually, since he brings up the whole Ready Player One thing, they already have those stationary, what are they? Stationary treadmills, the multi-directional treadmills where you can literally run all over and be in the same spot, and if you get on and actually start doing some research on the stuff that they're building for VR, man, it's insane.
Or do you think that it can get to the point where it can mimic the movements of your body accurately without you having to wear something?
So I think that there will be opportunities to wear things to augment the experience further, right? So we already have these experiments with haptic gloves where you can, like, if you touch a digital object, right? If you drop a ball from one hand to the other, you can feel the ball in your hand physically. And that's pretty cool. But I want to design this in a way where you don't need that, right? So today there's two primary modes of doing the tracking. I mean, there's this kind of notion of inside-out tracking. You're wearing the headset, and it tracks your motion, it tracks your hands. Eventually, it'll track your legs with an AI model, and you can do that.
Hey, everybody that's coming in now, since we're starting to get some folks, make sure you hit that thumbs up out there. That way we can get this new backup channel, out there in the algorithm and shit. That way people know where to come find us now. What's up, Kamasi? See you out there. Hey, Kamasi, if you want, you can hit the link, because here before long, I'm going to bypass all this shit because I think it's boring personally. And I'm gonna let about another 3 minutes of it play, and I'm gonna get to what I call the meat and potatoes, and that's them talking about all the fuck shit that's been going on with Facebook and social media. But I'll drop the link one more time. What's up, Bug Dude? Yeah, there we go. We're starting to get folks up in here. I appreciate y'all coming over here and to the backup channel, because this is where I'm going to have to stream now for probably about the next 3 months or better until I get these strikes off. I just got 2 content strikes within a week and 3 days of each other. Right on. I appreciate it, Kamasi. Appreciate it. Oh, and if anybody wants to help support a broke dude trying to build another platform, as always, the Cash App link is pinned at the top of the chat.
That all with your headset, and the big advantage of that is you don't need to have a whole lot of different devices, right? Eventually you'll be able to do it without even having controllers. You'll just have the headset will get smaller, it'll be more portable, you'll be able to bring it around. You don't want to have a setup that has like 10 pieces, right? I mean maybe there are going to be times when you want to kind of have that sort of super deep experience, or maybe you have it at your home, but I think ultimately people are going to just want to have versions of this that they can bring around, and whether it's on an airplane or you're doing work at the office or you're going to a coffee shop or whatever, and for that you really just want to make it work from the device.
So just from a pair of glasses or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, right now there's kind of the concepts of virtual reality and augmented reality are sort of on 2 different development paths, but they're obviously fundamentally interrelated, right? So virtual reality, it's kind of possible to build today, right? Quest 2, it's pretty popular, doing well. Hopefully the new one that comes out, I think it's a pretty big step above it. But you can build that today. There's a lot of new technology that we've researched that goes into that, but it also is building on top of decades of advances in displays that came from TVs and then laptops and phones, and some of the display technology gets to piggyback on those decades of innovation and all these different companies that have done that work before. AR is a pretty different beast, because what you really want to get to is not a headset. You want to get to something that's like a normal looking pair of glasses, that is, I mean, it won't be like a wireframe because you'll need to fit some electronics in it, right? You'll basically need to have a computer in there and speakers and a microphone and batteries and a laser projector, and then the display, which we and a lot of other folks think is going to be this technology called waveguides, which is completely different from screens, because it's a screen. It's like you're looking at a thing, and basically you're looking at like all the pixels that are on the screen. The thing that's different about a waveguide is it'll actually be see-through, so you'll be able to see the world through it, and then it'll display holograms, and be able to place them at different depths in the world.
So is a waveguide a type of technology? Like what is a waveguide?
Yeah, it's basically
Yo, tell me that don't sound just like that movie. I forget what the name of it is, but the one with Roddy Piper in it, where he puts them glasses on and it reveals the world to him.
They can be made of different substances, plastic, glass, different substrates, and they basically get etched or printed in different ways. And there's this big debate right now where a lot of the research is going into what is the right way to basically create these waveguides that have the right properties, because you want for augmented reality to get something that's wide enough field of view. So you can imagine in 5 years we're having this conversation. I'm not here. You're wearing AR glasses. Hologram Mark is here, and like it's not only just is it kind of working as a hologram, but there's all these different dimensions beyond just being like a better video chat. If we wanted to play poker, it's like I could like deal a deck of cards and we could play. Hologram me could deal hologram cards, and you could have your glasses, and physical you there could pick up the hologram cards, and you can have a poker night where like some of your friends are there physically and some of them are there as holograms. And it's actually kind of wild. One of the thought experiments that I like to do is thinking about how few of the things that we physically have in the world actually need to be physical. Obviously things like chairs.
Yeah, that's right. It is. They live.
Need to be physical, right? You're not going to be sitting on a hologram. Food needs to be physical. But most entertainment type stuff, I mean, not just cards, but games, most media, TVs in the future probably won't need to actually be physical things. It'll just be like an app, we'll just have an app there on your wall, and it's like snap your fingers, get the hologram there for the TV, and we can have our glasses and watch whatever you want there. And I don't know, they're sort of limited to being rectangular now.
Yo, what's up, Free Zone?
A bunch of limits in terms of the physics of how they get produced, but in the future you'll just have like some high school students or college students developing apps, and it'll just be wild, like crazy stuff will just kind of get created. But so you'll eventually be able to kind of have that all come through these AR glasses.
So are there these AR glasses, are they in production now? Are they in development now? Like when you talk about this kind of technology where you can see things that aren't there, and look at maps and watch videos and have it all on a small computer that's in the frame of the glasses.
Yeah.
Do they exist already?
No. I think we'll start to get stuff that kind of looks like the full version of this over the next, I'd say, 3 to 5 years. But I think it'll also start off pretty expensive once it's available, and then it'll take a while to work down to something that's like hundreds of dollars. But there are versions of this.
I got a question for all you guys. How long do you think it'll take before they give us a like legit heads-up display right on the windshield of our car? Where like right down in the like bottom corner, or over on the passenger side corner, that's where everything's displayed, and you can go so far as to have, like your internet connections with, and your Google Maps and all that shit right there on a heads-up display, displayed right in front of your face, kind of like a transparent HUD. Think that's something that's potentially in the future?
That you can start to see. if you relax some of the constraints, right? So the kind of ultimate AR experience is that, like, okay, you just have normal looking glasses that can kind of have all of these have holograms and make it so you can interact with people wherever you want. But if you relax the form factor constraint, right? So you have a headset.
Hey, Friezo, have you seen those? Their kind of makeshift heads-up displays where it's this little. It's like a mirroring system. You take your phone and you sit it down in this tray, and then it's got a mirror where it actually takes it and flips it backwards. What you have to do is you have to put an app on your phone that'll actually flip everything backwards on your phone. That way, when it mirrors it onto your windshield, you can actually see it. Because I actually have one here at the house. I tried using it. I wasn't a big fan. It didn't work as well as I thought it would. But I'm with you, dude. I wouldn't be surprised if we ain't 3 to 5 years out before we see that.
Instead of normal looking glasses. That's the other thing that's coming in the new device that we're shipping in October is mixed reality in VR, right? So we got to play around with this a little bit in the sword fighting experience that we did, but it's, basically the thing about mixed reality is you see the physical world around you. In the context of VR, it's not happening through a waveguide. It's basically happening through, you have cameras on the device that capture the world and then translate that in real time into stereo images, so different images in both eyes, so that way you can, because otherwise it's weird. I mean, we kind of see stuff in 3D because we have our two eyes see slightly different things. So you're kind of the computers are putting that together on the fly, and then you can overlay digital objects on top of that. So when we were, sword fighting, it's like the version of me and my sword. It's like that was a digital thing, but otherwise it was in your lobby, right? And you could see your lobby.
Yeah.
So you could start to see those kind of AR experiences starting to get built, but in a form factor around mixed reality VR first. So that's one.
Stand-up comedy, so obviously that experience you must.
But and my kids, I haven't had to think about it. Manipulating stuff with your hands. I mean that you like don't want to say something in front of someone. It's like I have this issue a lot because there's like a lot of confidential information that I have around the company. I don't want to share it with everyone, but I want to like get certain people's opinion on stuff. And if I'm doing a meeting and it's purely physical and like everyone is there, I found that sometimes I like have to wait until the meeting is over to go get the answer to the question that I wanted.
Right.
Whereas when I was if I'm kind of having a virtual meeting over Zoom or in VR and workrooms, you can just kind of text people while you're doing that. So I actually think that it will unlock a massive amount. Everything that you're doing on a computer or screen isn't the same. There's a lot of research into well-being that shows that there's like, are you actively engaging, and are you engaging with a person? Are you building relationships, or are you just consuming? And if you're building a relationship, then that is associated typically with a lot of long-term benefits and well-being, right? Because I mean, the relationships that we have in our lives, I view that as like the meaning, right? That's like that to me is like the point, and that I think over time is what generally creates happiness for people and prosperity. But if you're just sitting there and consuming stuff, I mean, it's not necessarily bad, but it generally isn't associated with all the positive benefits that you get from being actively engaged or building relationships.
Right. And
So-
Yeah, I'm back. I guess what I'm going to have to do is not actually, maybe not let them see the screen and just play some of the audio. I don't know why they keep fucking doing that. Fucking kills me. Yeah, that's what I'm going to have to do, Lou, is just play the audio. Get this started back up again. There we go. Make sure that they don't fucking, yeah. Hopefully I did it quick enough to where they don't kick me.
You could engage with people actively online and build digital relationships. And especially as this technology improves, you could actually have meaningful experiences with someone's avatar.
Yeah, so I mean,
it's very weird.
So I just want to make it so that the experiences that we're having aren't just these like passive things. Mm-hmm. So from my perspective, there's this like, people spend a lot of time with screens today. It's basically computers, phones, and TVs, and I'm always amazed because I spend all my time on phones and computers that for Americans still almost half the time that they spend on screens is TVs, more than phones or computers. So
really,
I mean, yes, I mean I think it might have just tipped to being in the last few years to being more phones and computers than TV, but TV is huge.
Because I know like Netflix and YouTube, I think a giant amount of their stuff is on phones.
It's a lot on phones, but it's a lot on TVs too, and a lot of people are still just watching, cable or different things like that, and so. When you think about new experiences, I actually think the first thing that they're going to go do is eat TV, right? And and kind of the more passive things. So, when people talk about being worried about, the time that people are spending in different kind of social experiences, I mean, the time has to come from somewhere. I think it's worth looking at where it's coming from. If it's coming from sleep, that's probably not great, right? If it's coming from exercise, I wouldn't be that happy with that. If it's coming from TV, I'm pretty fine with that, right?
Yeah.
I think that's actually maybe a net improvement in well-being for people overall if you're shifting from this more beta kind of consuming state to just being actually actively engaged, potentially building relationships. And there's just a ton of TV time to eat, right? So I think before we worry about this kind of consuming more and more of people's time, I actually just think looking at the mix of what people do today is good. And I mean, my goal for these next set of platforms, they are going to be more immersive and hopefully they'll be more useful. But I don't necessarily want the people to spend more time with computers. I just want the time that people spend with screens to be better. Because I mean, today so much of it is like you're just sitting around and I don't know, in this like beta state.
Do you really think that he wants the next platforms to be better and less toxic than what they are now, to where they're literally pulling straight up mind control on people, doing thought experiments on people and basically using you as a product to be sold? I mean, I don't think that shit's ever going to go away. They found a new commodity, and they're going to exploit the shit out of that for as long as they can, and he's going to be right at the center of it.
Consuming stuff, and I think that's like, I don't know. So you asked me, how do I control my own social media time or my time on this stuff? It's like, I mean, I do a bunch of social media. I do a lot of messaging. I really don't watch that much TV, and that's because I just don't have that much. I don't know. I find it puts me in this really weird mental state to unless there's something that I'm just like really attached to, right? So like I really like watching like UFC, for example. But that's because I also like doing the sport, right? So it's like I have some kind of connection to it. But I don't know, just like sitting around watching it's. I don't usually like get into a lot of TV shows or stuff.
Have
like
you
that.
always been a very physical person? Because I follow you on Instagram.
Yeah.
I see wakeboarding and stuff.
Yeah.
You're very active, which I think is it's a great message too. It's great for you, but it's also a great message for other people that here's this guy who's incredibly busy, and his life is overwhelmed with technology, yet he's constantly doing physical things and using his body and exercising and getting out in nature.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that my parents really stressed for me early on. They're like, my parents pushed me pretty hard. They're like, you're going to do well in school and you're going to be on 3 varsity sports teams. And like, and it's
That's
just,
it?
yeah, well, I mean, and you know, a lot of other stuff.
No, but I mean, like
but
that, you don't have any debate. It's it. This
No,
is, this is
yeah.
the rule.
So it's like, that's just what you're going to do. So, and I'm super grateful for it. I mean, they weren't very prescriptive, right? I mean, they didn't tell me I had to do computers. They didn't tell me which sports I had to do, but they were like, this is important. But I don't know. I mean, I've found it, especially as the company has scaled and in some ways become more stressful, it's like more important, right? I mean, my sort of day is like, it's like, all right, you wake up in the morning, look at my phone, you get like 1 million messages, right, of stuff that come in. It's usually not good, right? I mean, people reserve the good stuff to tell me in person, right?
Right.
So, but it's like, okay, what's going on in the world that I need to kind of pay attention to that day, or so it's almost like every day you wake up and you're like punched in the stomach, and then it's like, okay, well, fuck, now I need to like go reset myself and be able to kind of be productive and not be stressed about this. So how do I do that? So I read, I take in all the information, and then I go do something physical for an hour or two and just kind of reset myself. And over time, what I've found is that it's not actually just, I used to run a lot, but the problem with running is you can think a lot while you're running. So I've, especially over the last couple of years, I've gotten really into things that require full focus. So, at the beginning of COVID, I mentioned that I spent a bunch of time in Kauai. Our family has a ranch down there, and like I spent a lot of time foiling and surfing. And it's like, if you're foiling or surfing and you're on like a wave, you have to pay attention the whole time, right? Or else you're going to fall and maybe get held under. And it's like that's not a great experience. I don't know if you surf, but
No, I don't. But I tried foiling, and
Uh-huh.
I'm an oaf. I couldn't get on the thing.
Well,
my young daughter is really good at it, my 12-year-old, and she just zooms around and gets on that thing, and I couldn't figure it out.
yeah, it's you're talking about the e-foil for
Yes.
that. Yeah, I bet if you tried it for like a few days, you'd
That's
get
the
it down
problem.
pretty well. Yeah.
I tried it for about 3 hours, and I was like,
But
oh
the-
my God, this is awful.
But the actual foiling, not the e-foil. I mean, the e-foil weighs like 40 pounds. An actual foil board maybe weighs like 5 to 10 pounds. So, and after you learn how to foil, flying an e-foil is like, it feels like you're flying a tank through the air or something. But it's I don't know, it's a pretty interesting learning curve, but it requires full engagement the whole time.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, that's sort of, this
So
is
it's
sort of,
cleansing.
yeah. And this is sort of how I got into MMA too, is after, now I don't spend as much time in Kauai because things are ramping back up and I'm in the office a lot more. So it's like, all right, there's not as much foiling in Palo Alto. So it's like, all right, what's a thing that is both like just
What's
super
good, laughing
engaging
dog?
physically, but also intellectually, and where you can't afford to focus on something else. And I think to some degree, it's like MMA is like the perfect thing, because it's like if you don't, like you stop paying attention for 1 second, you're going to end up on the bottom.
Yeah.
Right. So I've just found that is just really important for me in terms of like what I do and being able to just kind of maintain my energy level, maintain my focus, because then like after, an hour or two of working out or, rolling or wrestling with friends or, training with different folks, it's like, now I'm ready to go solve whatever problem at work for the day. And like, I've fully processed all the different news for the day that's come in, and we're just ready to go.
How did you get introduced to martial arts training? Like, how long ago was this?
It was in the last 12 months, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because it was basically I used to just run a lot and just do that, and then basically since COVID, it's like got super into surfing and foiling, then got really into MMA.
So how did you initially approach it? Like, how did you get a trainer? Like, what did you do?
I know a bunch of people who are into it. There's actually this really interesting connection between people who surf and do jujitsu.
Oh yeah.
So
a lot of similarities.
So a bunch of the guys who I do that with, they kind of have gyms in Kauai, and I basically collected a bunch of recommendations, ran them by a bunch of people who I know, and I ended up I trained with this guy Dave Camarillo.
I know Dave.
Yeah, Guerrilla Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So, and he's awesome. He's
great.
Yeah, super nice guy, and I feel like I'm learning a ton. And the crazy thing is, like, I don't know. I mean, it really is the best sport. I don't. The question isn't how did I get into it. It's how did I not know about it until just now. From the.
Hold on a second. This just dawned on me. Is Mark Zuckerberg trying to tell everyone that he has the capability of kicking all of our asses? Is that what he's trying to say by telling us that he does jiu-jitsu now? That if we try and come at him, that we better come with like 10 cases of whoop ass? Just curious. It's interesting.
The very first session that I did, like 5 minutes in, I was like, where has this been my whole life? It's like, all right, my mom made me do 3 varsity sports, and like my life took a wrong turn when I chose to do fencing competitively instead of wrestling in high school or something, right? It's like there's something that's just so primal about it. That's I don't know. It's and I've since then I've just introduced a bunch of my friends to it, and that's been really fun because now it's like we train together and we just like wrestle together, and just I don't know. There's like a certain intensity to it that I like, and it's sort of, I don't know. Maybe it's like there's this cultural thing where maybe a lot of people haven't considered it,
Right.
But I've had 100% hit rate of introducing friends to it and converting them to people who now train. Every single person who I've kind of shown it to is like, this is amazing. This is like obviously how I should be training and working out.
Yeah. That's very impressive that it's 100%. You must have some solid friends, because a lot of people get turned off by the amount of effort that's involved, but they get excited by the problem solving, which is the more fascinating part, like learning the techniques and focusing on memorizing the techniques and developing the skills and then drilling. Like that's probably one of the most important things about jiu-jitsu that people don't do enough of is drilling. Like I made some of my biggest leaps in martial arts from like blue belt to purple belt just through constant drilling. I was drilling all the time with my friend Eddie Bravo. So we were always working on techniques. And so I was able to like progress much quicker. And then I noticed when I stopped doing that later, my progress kind of stagnated. It's like there's a real clear correlation between the amount of energy you put into drilling and observing the technique, and then just going through the motion with like someone offering like 20%, 30% resistance. Yeah. It's just not as fun. Like sparring is the most fun. Like you immediately want to just slap hands and start rolling. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really trust Dave, and so I think it's also.
Yeah, Dave's great.
Yeah, and I'm also just depending on what's going on in my life and work that day. Like some days I like have the energy to go spar, and some days it's good to just go drill. And you know, it's like, all right, there's a lot going on. There's it's better to just go do something like 20 times in a row.
Both things are important, but if you can force yourself to drill more than you spar, you'll get better.
Yeah.
It's really important. It's like the most important thing, and it's the thing that people do the least of. Because like to really like carve those pathways in your mind, like when someone is in this position, you do that, and then you immediately get your knee in position, you shift your hips. It's just, it gets driven into your programming, so that in the flow of an actual rolling session, it just happens.
Yeah.
You see Tom Hardy just won a bunch of fucking
I did.
matches. Tom Hardy is like an ass kicker. Him and Mario Lopez are out there competing in jiu-jitsu tournaments. Like, this is wild. And they're both like beginners. They're both like blue belts. I'm like, that's incredible.
Well, maybe I'll get there for my 40th birthday in a
You
couple
should
years.
do it. Bourdain did it. He did it when he was like, God, I think he was like 60.
I just think I do a lot of stuff like this with friends, but
Bourdain was
I also
a badass,
just find, like,
though.
wrestling around with friends is
fun.
It's awesome.
Fun. Yeah, wrestling is fun. Jiu-jitsu is even more fun because it's like wrestling with like finishes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited that you're into it. It's really cool. And I think it really enhances your enjoyment of watching it on television because
Oh,
now
yeah.
you know what's happening.
But there's also like a lot of good parallels, I think, in philosophy for life and work and all that. I mean, both surfing and foiling and jujitsu, MMA, it's like, I think it sort of teaches you about like the flow and momentum of things. And I think business is like this in a similar way, where it's like the hardest thing is knowing when you're in a position where you need to push through versus sort of developing the intuition for when like, all right, when like the momentum is just going in the other direction. It's like, all right, you're not going to be able to pump over this swell. If you keep your weight in this direction, you're going to get swept, right? I do think, I mean, it's a super concrete thing. I think one of the things that's sort of frustrating running a company is like the feedback loops are so long, right? It's like, all right, so I showed you the pre-release version of the new VR headset that we're building. It's like we've been working on that for years, and now it's like, so basically the ideas that went into that, and there's obviously a lot of problem solving even up until now to kind of get it to work well, but the basic principles of, okay, what like big features are we going to prioritize? Made those decisions years ago, and we're not going to know if that's right until maybe a year from now, until we see how that goes. So there's something that I think is sort of, it's difficult in running an enterprise of that scale to like try to learn from things at such a long, such a kind of a long interval. And it's something that I just find super rewarding, is having these parts of what I get to do on a day-to-day basis where you're learning about, like, you get to push on the world or push on other people and get to kind of see how that goes like a second later instead of 4 years later.
Right.
It's like, all right, am I going to be able to like go turn that direction on that wave, or am I just going to get swallowed? Right. So it's, I don't know. I think that having that mix in your life is, it feels really important and healthy to me. And I mean, I try to get my friends into it. I mean, my kids do jujitsu too. I just think it's like really important that they kind of develop all these skills and appreciation for doing physical things, just like my parents taught me. But I don't know. I guess overall, it's like a big part of, I don't know. It's a big part of of who I am, I think. I mean, going back to the other conversation about like, are we just brains and tanks? It's like, no, because this is like the part of, my life that I think is, it's like this is super fun. Like the building things, it's like that's super engaging too. It's like a very different type of intellectual exercise.
Well, it's also the one-on-one physical connection with a person. I would imagine that your life has got to be very bizarre because you are the head of this enormous platform and you're dealing with so many human beings and so much negativity and positivity and all kinds of fires that you have to put out and all sorts of chaos, and to just have one thing, one person right in front of you is probably really good to sort of clean the pipes out and just like clear your mind and have your ability to focus on things sort of like put into perspective.
Yeah.
That it's got to be very unmanaged. I mean, I don't know how, I've talked to people about this before. Whenever people talk about like social media sites and they're doing this and they're doing that, I'm like, could you imagine trying to manage at scale 5 billion people or whatever it is? How many people are on Facebook right now?
Facebook is almost 3 billion, but across our different properties, it's like a little more than 3.5 billion.
That's so many people.
Yeah.
That's impossible. Like no one can manage 5 billion people or 3 billion people or a billion. It's like the numbers are just, they're so absurd. It's so preposterous. It doesn't make any sense. So like I would imagine that for your mind, the amount of pressure that's involved in just maintaining, it's like it has to be like looming over you at all times in the background. Like it's probably very difficult for you to find things that filter that out.
Yeah, I mean, there's always stuff to work on, right?
Yeah.
So I think a big part of trying to push forward is maintaining enough control of my time to push on the things that like I believe need to be advanced for the future rather than being reactive. Like if my day is primarily consumed with just reacting to things that people are throwing at me. I mean, I can spend all of my time 1,000 times over just reacting to all the things that people throw at me, and I still wouldn't get through the whole list.
Right.
Which, by the way, I mean, I think that that's probably a somewhat extreme version because I'm running this company, but I actually think this is probably true for everyone. I think pretty much every person, I think, has a lot that gets thrown at them, and you could spend all of your time just reacting to that. And I think a lot of what kind of creates the ability to be successful long term and to build things and change your life and build products that change other people's lives is carving out the time to do stuff that's proactive. And that's both taking care of yourself, right? And kind of and being physical and getting out there and also getting to spend time with my family and my girls and all that. But it's also, I mean, I could spend all of my time just working on the things that we've already built and not trying to advance this vision for the future. But balancing that is important. I mean, it's like I also spend a ton of time on all the social media pieces of what we're building. I mean, it's like they're nowhere near done, right? And there are some awesome evolutions that are happening there with enabling more creators and enabling more people to have a voice there. I mean, the creative economy has sort of exploded over the last few years, and I think it's just at the beginning of like sort of hopefully remaking a lot of the economy for the country and the world, so that way more people can pursue creative endeavors. I think that's just going to be one of the most positive trends that comes out of this decade. So
I agree with you 100% on that. It's really an amazing time for people to be able to carve out an alternative living.
Yeah.
And to do so through social media platforms. And there's so many people like using all the platforms that have developed these followings and started businesses, and whether it's in fitness or there's people that are just chefs that like they cook online and they share and sell recipes.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that I really admire about what you do is, it seems like you have a real commitment to giving a voice to a lot of different types of people, right? It feels like a big part of your theme is, you have a lot of people on the show who wouldn't just nowhere, like no chance that they get the exposure that they get from talking to you elsewhere. And, part of the question that I wonder about is in Instagram and in Facebook, you have your follow graph, right? You have your, the people you choose to follow and you have your friends, but can we build AI systems that can also just help recommend better content that you didn't know to follow yet because it's kind of it's up your alley. It's like aligned with the type of things that you care about, your values, your interests.
Right.
And I just view that kind of confluence of building. It's a very specific AI problem. It's not like this kind of general intelligence AI problem, but I tend to think about things in terms of more specific problems that you can break down and try to deliver value for people. But I think. I just love it if in, a couple of years, a significant, not the majority, but a significant part of the Instagram and Facebook experiences were basically highlighting different creators who you might be interested in but might have not otherwise seen. And I think that would both be good for people who are using those experiences to discover more people, get more diversity of input into their lives, but also I think can help push that creative economy forward. It's I don't know. That's one of the things that I'm super passionate about right now.
Well, having an algorithm like that could really help. Like one of the things that Spotify does really well is suggest new music.
Yeah.
So if you like a certain, I love how they do that. Where if you like a certain kind of music and you develop these playlists, they'll start recommending you music. And I found out about so many different bands that I would never know about before. I think it's really the thing that gets people with algorithms is that algorithms today have this negative connotation to them, and people there's a lot of argument that algorithms cause dissent and cause arguments and cause strife, and that people are focusing only on the things that upset them. But the real problem with that is that they're not taught how to think and focus on things. Because what the algorithms pick up on is essentially, what are you spending the most time on? Well, if you're spending the most time on carpentry and parasailing and deep sea fishing, that's what the algorithm's going to recommend to you. Like my friend Ari, he went through this experiment where he only Googled puppies. and he only YouTube puppies, and that's all they recommended him. Like YouTube videos was all just puppies, and he's like, see, like all this stuff that people are saying, like, oh, the algorithms are tearing us apart. Like, no, we're tearing us apart. The algorithms just highlight the things that you're interested in. It's not like the algorithm's some tricky program designed by the communist government to try to get you to argue with each other. No, you're arguing. You like to argue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the algorithms can also obviously be designed better or worse. So, one of the things that I'm pushing on a lot right now is there's this idea in designing recommendation systems of explore versus exploit. In that it's like, okay, if someone has spent a bunch of time, searching for puppies, they like puppies. So if you show them a puppy video, they'll probably engage with that. But if you only show them puppy videos, over the long term, you're missing an opportunity to understand what other things that they're interested in. So even though it might not be kind of ideal for the experience today, carving off, 5%, 10% of basically the experience to just try to expose people to different things to see if they're interested in that too, ends up paying long-term dividends. So I do think that like these systems done well, if you design them with a long-term perspective and you're not just trying to kind of maximize engagement today, but you're really trying to understand what people care about and who people want to become and what their values are, I think you can build some stuff that gets really good over time. But I do think that the design of the system and the values that go into it matters quite a bit too.
I think so too. I'm not neither pro nor con algorithms or recommendations. I think it's a fascinating aspect of social media, but I do think that there are certain people that, unfortunately, when they get excited about a thing or when they start going online, they generally gravitate towards things that irritate them and upset them. And that's the big concern that many people have with algorithms and with the use of social media, Twitter in particular, is that people are using it and getting upset, and it's creating more tension and more of a divide.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to think about these services not just in terms of the information that is conveyed, but as a product designer, a big part of what you're designing is the emotional experience that people have using it. So, like, I just don't want to build something that makes people super angry.
Right.
And I think that these things have different charges to them, right? I mean, Twitter, I agree. It's like you're on it, and it's the plus side of it is that you get all these people who are super witty and are saying super insightful things, but a lot of them are very cutting, right? And I find that it's hard to spend a lot of time on Twitter without getting too upset. On the flip side, I think Instagram is a super positive space. It's almost I think some of the critique that we get there is that it's very curated and potentially in some ways overly positive. But I think the energy on Instagram is generally very positive, and it's easy to spend time there and kind of just like absorb a lot of the positivity.
I think that's true, but how did that happen?
Well,
like, why is the Instagram generally friendlier?
I mean,
I would like to know where he's getting that from, because me personally, Instagram looks like nothing more than a supermarket for pedophiles. Straight up. They do nothing but exploit little underage girls and basically put up a freaking catalog of shit for pedophiles to sit and look at and lives for them to potentially ruin.
So I think that it's the design of the system, but it's but one thing is I think images are a little less cutting usually and kind of critical than text. I think the news in general is often negative. I think the incentives of the news industry are often I think just the mission of the news industry is to kind of speak truth to power and highlight things, like hold people accountable. So I think that even if you're looking at it from that perspective, I think a lot of the stuff is like it's generally has this very critical tone to it. But like with everything, there's just a balance. If you spend your whole life living in criticism, then that's super negative. But I think that, what we've tried to do with Facebook is have a little bit of both, right? I mean, Facebook has images and videos, but it also has news. And the part of it that's probably the most critical, where we probably have the most controversies around the more newsy type stuff, the more political type stuff. And over time, I mean, I've generally just felt like, hey, that's not even what people in our community tell us that they want, right? People say that they come here because they want to connect with other people and explore interests. And so I just want to emphasize that more of it. But like, there are some very intentional decisions that you can make in terms of designing this stuff. So, for example, now on Facebook, when you're reacting to a post, you in addition to liking it, you can heart it, you can like give it kind of an angry emotion. And one of the decisions that we've basically made is if someone kind of gives an angry reaction, we actually don't even count that in terms of whether to show that to someone else, or maybe we even discount it, right? So it's if you could kind of view it as, okay, someone chose that they like were interested in this post and chose to give an angry reaction, but we just don't want to amplify anger, right? That's like not what I kind of view us as here to do. So we're just going to basically take that signal and like not use it to show the post to more people.
So how do you do that? Like, how do you decide, like, what if it's anger, but it's justifiable anger?
Yeah, I think that that's exactly the right question. Is basically, when I was making that decision internally, a bunch of teams were like, well, there is a lot of stuff that's wrong in the world, and people should be angry about that. And it's like, yeah, I think that's fair, but I'm not here to design a service that makes people angry. Right. So I kind of think that there's a balance, and it's not like there's not going to be any angry stuff. I mean, people can still react and say that something is negative if they don't like it. But I don't view our job as going and, needing to kind of amplify all that stuff.
So why do you have the option to have an angry response?
Well, I think it's good for people to be able to convey it.
Is it like a thumbs down?
Yeah. It's like an angry emoji face.
Angry emoji face. And so obviously there's the option to have angry comments, which is just people's ability to express themselves.
Yeah. But we basically choose to, if someone likes something, or if a friend chooses to share something, we use that as a signal to say, hey, this might be something that you're interested in because someone reacted to this, right?
Which is just people's ability to express themselves.
Yeah. But we basically choose to, if someone likes something, or if a friend chooses to share something, we use that as a signal to say, hey, this might be something that you're interested in because someone reacted to this, right? It's like a friend had some kind of emotional reaction to this and thought it was interesting enough to engage with, so you might also think it's interesting to engage with. But we try to intentionally mute the kind of angry reactions, just because that's just not what we're trying to do in the world.
I appreciate that. What do you think about the argument that algorithms in general, because the fact that they sort of appeal to human nature, like they amplify the things that you're interested in, and unfortunately people are interested oftentimes in things that upset them. What do you think about the argument that this is whether it's too influential or it has too much impact on people, and that a better solution would be to just let everything exist how it exists and don't have any kind of algorithm, and let people find what they find and share what they share, and just let it exist in sort of the free market of ideas?
Yeah, so we actually...
Yeah, so let's sit and ponder on that for a second before we get Zuck's answer. What's up, Jay? You're muted, bro.
What up, man? How you doing?
Oh, trying to build another platform.
Oh, you got kicked off again?
No, I'm on my second content strike.
Oh, shit.
So I got to take a hiatus from the other one and build up a new one.
Right. I feel you on that, man. Yeah, I watched this interview a couple days ago. I was
Yeah,
like,
this is
oh.
where I think this is where we're going to start getting into the meat and potatoes of it.
Right.
But I'm curious. How does he decide? You know, what's important to hear and what isn't. You know, Laughing Dog says they will be heard one. Laughing Dog says they will be heard one way or another. Gab, hey man, I think you got a tab open, man, because there's a lot of echo.
You know what? That's probably from your speaker, man. Stuff like that from a speaker for my things. I'm on my headset, right? Say something real quick.
Yo.
All right, that's better.
No, I can still hear you. I can hear me. No, now that's better. That's better right there. I don't hear nothing.
Right.
But yeah, Laughing Dog says they will be heard one way or another. Gab leaves it up to the individual to decide. That way, the angry fucks. I feel like that's being directed towards me, Laughing Dog. The angry fucks, get it out and don't do any real harm to anyone physically. And I think that it's necessary for people to get the shit out. You know, you can't keep stifling speech. What's going to happen, man, when you keep censoring everybody and nobody's got no outlet or no way to say anything, man? You're going to end up with a bunch of pissed off people out, you know, taking out fucking grandmas all across the country.
Oh yeah, man. I'm as happy as hell as people starting to see, or at least have an inkling of seeing what's going on.
Yeah, but my question is, do they really though? A lot of these motherfuckers that think they see shit are like 3 decades behind everyone else.
Well, you know what, Joe? At least it's something.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know, at least it's something. At least we, because all the thing we were talking about is starting up a discussion. Now we have it. Then you know what? That makes us no better than the liberals.
Oh, I will always be better than a liberal and a conservative. I will never be lumped into any of them piles.
Let me call you back. I'll be back. My girl's on the line.
Yep. But let's go ahead and get into more of this. Let's see what Zuck has to say for himself.
Actually started there, right? Because at the beginning we didn't have the technology to do this kind of ranking. And the very first thing that you run into is if you don't do any kind of ranking, the system gets gamed in different ways. So if you're not ranking anything, the most recent stuff shows up at the top. So what do you get? You get a bunch of businesses that want to make sure that you see their stuff, so they just post constantly. They post like 50 times a day, so that way they've always posted something within the last 10 or 20 minutes. That way it's always at the top of feed. The other thing that you get is like, you miss obviously really important stuff. All right, so like my cousin is pregnant, and when she has a baby, she's going to post about that, and like that post better be at the top of my feed because I don't want to miss that, right? It's like I want that update, and we know that that's valuable even without knowing the even if we don't understand the kind of specific content of what she posted. There's going to be a ton of people commenting congrats and you know a ton of hearts and positive reactions.
So that's the question there. Like, how does that enter into the algorithm? Like, if you're going to favor something like your cousin's baby being born, how would you go about doing that? And how does the AI figure out that your cousin just had a baby and that this should be in all the people that follow her, should be in all their feeds, because they would want to know, yay, she had the baby.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is just, there's a lot of signals that go into it, but at a simple level, you can kind of just look at who are the people who you care about and what do they find interesting. So what are they commenting on? What are they clicking on? What are they liking or hearting? Those are some of the big signals, right? And then there's some kind of content-based stuff, like we have a sense that you're interested in this type of thing or that you really hate politics or whatever, so we're going to show you a little bit less of that. But in general, the thing that will differentiate that cousin's baby was just born post is that even if our system has no idea what the post means, that post will almost certainly just have a ton of likes and comments on it that have a positive reaction. So that will just tell us, okay, if your friends made, 500 posts today, that's the one that has the most kind of positivity around it. We should probably show that more prominently. So I think at a basic level, a system that didn't do that stuff would clearly be an inferior system, right? You don't want businesses spamming, and you don't want to miss obviously important stuff.
Is there a way to stop businesses from spamming, that you could just limit the amount of times they could post in a day?
I mean, there are a bunch of things like this that we've tried over time. I mean, but then you start getting into some things that are basically pretty algorithmic or rules based, which is like, you start trying to, rank stuff based on the kind of quality of the posts, right? Or sort of how much engagement they make. I mean, I guess you could tell people they can't share more than this amount, but I don't know. It kind of feels to me like you want to create a system. And there are certain creators who do pump out a large amount of content, and I'm not sure that you want to stop that.
Right.
I think you just want a system that can basically titrate it and show people the amount of it that they're interested in.
It's such an immense responsibility, and the fact that it's a private company in some ways troubles some people, because you have this ability to control the flow of information, and that's really never existed before, where there's been, like, obviously social media is very new, that's never existed before, and then having a company that's run by human beings that have the ability to decide what gets broadcast, what gets its signal amplified, what gets suppressed, all that stuff is it concerns a lot of people, because it's basically just individual human beings with their own biases and their own perspectives and their own view of the world, and they have the ability to either slow down or ramp up or suppress or amplify so many different ideas, and in turn that can literally shape the way the cultural narrative goes on any given subject. What is it like having that kind of responsibility? Because it seems to me that would be an immense burden, that would be like a lot of thought would be involved in, like, what are the negative consequences of the choices that we make? What are the positive consequences of the choices we make? Because, as you said, you're controlling the signal of three.
Do what, penis?
I said, ask Tunisia.
What are we asking them?
What exactly happened in 2011 in Tunisia with Twitter?
I don't know. Tell
That
me.
was the first social media fueled revolution.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It came to a peak, I think it was January 15th, maybe
Wow.
December 15th, I forget which one. It's on the description in one of my videos, but I forget which one.
Huh. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'll send you some data on it later.
You like how this guy's tap dancing around, being honest?
No, I want to punch him right in his fucking dick.
Yeah, I know, right?
But I don't think I would find one. I think he's a clone.
Do you?
I do. I mean, it's not based on any kind of information, just impression. But yeah.
Yeah.
Synthetic humanoid. Yeah, he was hatched in a frat house somewhere.
That could be.
Just my opinion.
Well, let's finish listening to some more of his gaslighting.
dance moves.
What's True say? He's moonwalking through history.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, bro. None of what you just said is. I don't have any recollection of this Facebook you're talking about.
He's moonwalking into the future. Trying to.
3+ billion people. That is so astounding to even say.
Well, I think the important thing is that I don't exactly look at it the way that you said. I view our job as empowering people to be able to express what they want and get the content that they want. And whenever we try to exert some kind of opinion that's different from what people want, our products do worse. And we exist in a very competitive space. I mean, we have TikTok that's growing incredibly quickly. And there's a whole lot of other companies. We talked about Twitter before. You talked about Snap. YouTube is huge and people spend a ton of time on it. And there's just like new social products all the time. So if we don't empower people and help people get what and advance their own goals, then we lose over time. So I kind of think that obviously serving a lot of people is a big responsibility and we take that super seriously. But we also appreciate and respect that this is like a very competitive marketplace. And our role in it is not to kind of imprint our opinion, but to empower people. And that's sort of the ethos where we started the company is. I mean, the initial, mission statement is, give people the power to share and make the world more open and connected. And we've evolved that over time to and now making it around building community and bringing people and bringing the world closer together. But it's fundamentally that notion of giving people the power and empowering people is like really deep in the ethos of the company. And I think whenever we mess that up, which we do frequently, we pay the price for it. And people don't like those things that we do, and then we have to run them back.
Well, that goes back to managing at scale, right? Because you're just dealing with so many different people. But what I'm saying essentially is like I do agree that you are giving people the ability and the power to express themselves, and if you don't do it correctly, they're going to go to the competitors. But it's still an immense responsibility if there are choices being made as to like what gets amplified, what gets suppressed, what gets removed from the platform. And I'm sure there has to be some pretty intense conversations about how this is managed and handled, and the burden of that must be tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of different parts of what you just said. I mean, I think in terms of kind of helping people discover the things that they want, I think that's a pretty different wing of what we do than the policy setting of what is not allowed, which I think is in a lot of ways, I think, a more controversial piece, because in the what's not allowed, you have to get into the nuances of specific types of content. Whereas in terms of the recommendation systems, you kind of want to build those to be agnostic of the type of content, right? It's like, I don't like if I see that a team is trying to promote some type of content over another, they're almost certainly doing something wrong that is going to make us worse than a competitor in terms of effectiveness of our product. Because you should just build this technology in a way that is agnostic and lets people express the interests and things that they want and gives them that. And then every once in a while, I think that there are some editorial decisions that often they're important enough that I have to make them, right? Like that thing that we talked about before, which is like, I just don't want there to be as much anger. So we're going to like not take into account the angry reaction. It's probably the case that there would be more engagement on the platform if we didn't, right? It's like people are expressing something and we're choosing to not listen to that thing. So at some level, it probably makes the product somewhat less engaging, but that's an example of an editorial decision that it's like, at some level, we're here not just to focus on what content people see, but the kind of emotional sense. But I try to make those very few, just because the technology can enable a vast breadth of interests that different people have. And I think part of how you build something that can serve billions of people is by not telling people what to think, right? And basically having humility and basically, I don't know, just valuing humanity and valuing that people can believe different things and that those beliefs are probably grounded in real lived experiences that they had and aren't the result of them being tricked or something like that. It's like they believe what they believe for a reason, and it's kind of good to generally let people express that. I don't know. That's a pretty deeply held belief that I have.
One of the things that's got to be bizarre about having a platform like Facebook is that that there are foreign actors that are utilizing the platform to either spread propaganda or to start arguments, or we read once that I think it was 19 of the top 20 Christian sites on Facebook were run by a troll farm.
I didn't see that one.
See if we can find it. It's pretty crazy. The amount of resources that are put into creating fake pages or pages that don't really represent real people but promote certain ideologies or certain political agendas, and that they'll use these and start arguments with people.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't even realize people think they're arguing with real people, and they're reading the opinions of real people.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there's a guy with a bank of phones in Macedonia.
Yeah. No. So we call this.
Here it is. 19 of 20 Christian Facebook pages are fake.
Yeah. So we call what you're talking about coordinated inauthentic behavior. So basically these
coordinated
inauthentic behavior. So it's
Sounds
basically
like a good
coordinated,
band.
right? It's like some of these policy acronyms that we come up with, they have to be very specific,
Yeah,
right?
I get it.
But basically we have a team of hundreds of like counterterrorism and counterintelligence people who basically try to look for these different signals to find. And like you said, a lot of this is, I mean, that one that you were just mentioning, I don't know who's behind those fake pages, but in the Macedonian troll farms were basically a bunch of spammers who created fake pages, and they wanted people to click on them so they can make money from the ads. So that one's actually pretty easy to disrupt, because you just make it so that they can't use the ads to monetize anymore, and their whole economic incentive goes away and they sort of dry up. Dealing with nation states is a lot harder because they're more kind of ideological or sovereignty motivated. So there, I think you just kind of need to be very vigilant, and it's more of an arms race, and you just kind of are building up better technology for defense, and you assume that they're going to keep on getting more sophisticated, and you keep on needing to get better. But I mean, at this point, we have it's like tens of thousands of people working on this at the company. I think we spend like $5 billion a year was the last stat on sort of all this community integrity work. I mean, it's like our kind of defense budget. It's like, I mean, just to put the numbers in perspective.
I love how you call it a defense budget.
I mean, it's basically it's like, I mean, it's to defend the integrity of the community, but it's like I mean, it is I think bigger than the defense budgets of probably most countries, but it's and this is obviously a super critical part of what we need to do. But then, there's also this important set of philosophical discussions, which is like, all right, so I think almost everyone will agree that like that's bad, right? Like you don't want, countries basically creating networks of bots trying to convince people of stuff. You don't want terrorism, right? You don't want child pornography. Like you don't want people inciting literal violence. But then the question is, okay, so you build these capabilities to try to find this stuff, and it's a combination of basically humans, really expert humans, and really powerful AI systems working together. But like sometimes they get it wrong, and then we end up taking down accounts that we weren't supposed to take down, and that sucks, right? Because then we're kind of getting in the way of people expressing legitimate things, and there's no system is ever going to be perfect. So the question is, do you want more false positives or false negatives? Do you want there to be more kind of fake Christian pages, or do you want to accidentally take down I don't know, what was the example recently of like the comedian who had a profile photo that had a kind of a gun in it, and the that we accidentally took down this guy's page that we were talking about this before.
Kill Tony?
Yeah,
the Kill Tony podcast.
Yeah, so it's like, all right, so some like AI system was just like, all right, like that's clearly violence, right? It's like the profile picture like literally has a kind of rifle sight and a gun. It shows the guy dying. So it's like, So I mean that sucks. Like I mean this is some of the stuff that I mean this like hurts me, right? Because like when we take down something that we're not supposed to, I mean that is like I mean that's
You
the
mean
worst.
like
That's my
everything?
concern. Like how, like say, like these Christian Facebook pages. I don't know how they found out that 19 of 20 were fake, but if someone just says I am Bob Smith and they post as Bob Smith and they have a photograph but really what they're doing is trying to talk shit about Joe Biden and get people to vote Republican in the midterms. Like how do you know whether someone's real or not? Like this is the big argument with Elon and Twitter. Because Elon asked Twitter, like, what percentage of your website is filled with bots? And they say 5%. And he says, I don't believe you. I think it's higher. And let's find out how you've come to this conclusion.
Yeah.
And, you know, I believe they said that they just took 100 random Twitter pages and looked at the interaction. And there's some sort of an algorithm they applied to it. But how do you discern?
Yeah. So I mean I think estimating the overall prevalence is one thing, but I think that the question of looking at a page and is this page authentic, I think that there's a bunch of signals around that. One of the things that we try to do
Let's have our machines discover how many machines are in the machine, because they'll be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say, hold on. Let's all take this in for a second. Take a deep
Dance,
breath.
motherfucker. Dance.
Can you smell that smell?
Oh, man. Smells like bullshit.
Ooh, that smell. The smell of ass around you.
I think we need some soap.
I don't think there's enough soap in the world to get all that off.
What do you think, fellas? Should we start a club? I mean, we could, but we couldn't talk about it.
Or promote it. I don't even know if we could. Technically, we wouldn't even be able to collect members.
You know, we can't unless you talk about it.
I guess that kind of means that what's the fucking point in having a club then, right?
His name was Robert Paulson. Sounds good.
So in death, we can have a name. His name was Robert Paulson. I'm just taking a second, everybody out there, just a second to, breathe in all this wonderful yummy that we're getting right now. Because I have a feeling we're about to get the shit gaslit out of us. I smell a lot of gas. How about you? Do you smell gas?
It's coming from somewhere.
I mean, the gas is so strong it's almost like being in a trailer park right next to a meth lab.
Ignis Fatus.
Woo!
Swamp
Something's about to explode.
There's a swamp light. You know, all the thick methane that comes up out of a swamp, it'll be up in the atmosphere above it, and light will refract through it, and it will kind of look like a star from a distance. You get there, and all you get is shit. Or maybe eaten by a crocodile.
I'll take the crocodile. Well, you guys ready for this dumpster fire?
Fired up.
All right.
How do you discern?
Yeah, so I mean, I think estimating the overall prevalence is one thing, but I think that the question of looking at a page and is this page authentic, I think that there's a bunch of signals around that. One of the things that we try to do is for large pages, we try to make sure that we know who the admin of that page is. We don't necessarily, if you should be able to run an anonymous page, you don't necessarily need to out yourself and say who you are running it, but we want to make sure that we sort of have like an identity for that person on file, so that way we know, like at least behind the scenes, that that person is real. For certain political things, I think having a sense of what country they're originating from. I mean, some of that you can do just by looking at where their server traffic comes from, like is the IP address coming from Romania, or because if it's like an
Hold on a second. Did he just admit that he can work around VPNs?
Yes, that's absolutely possible, because the thing that is used to disguise your IP through a VPN is basically a machine made by the machine makers.
And controlled by another machine.
Exactly. So they're having wolves inspect the wolves that guard the sheep.
So, who's is there anybody saying Skynet's fiction at this point anymore?
Right. Well, there are companies that want to make machines to sell to businesses at an international level, and they do it en masse and basically decide who gets that technology and how they're going to upgrade it. And everybody that thinks that the machines are taking over, they're not taking over. They're not sentient.
The hell
it's
they
the
are.
It's the people that make them. They make them appear sentient while they dumb the population down and have them surrender their liberties for security, and in effect causing the people to have nor deserve either one.
Laughing Dog, am I the only one? Jay, am I the only one that feels like Cyber is up here caping for Zuckerfuck?
Caping?
Yeah, that's what I just said, caping.
You know what? Actually, there was. Hold on one second.
I'm just fucking with you, Cyber.
There's no need to cape for a tool. He's just at the top of the useful idiot chart.
Man, I don't know what's wrong with your phone, Jay, but you got a lot of feedback, dude.
You know what, man? My phone, I don't know what's up with my blame phone, and I can't get on with my Mac yet. You know what I'm saying? So it's stuff like that. And there is nothing on whatsoever. I don't know what the hell's wrong with this phone. It's a good phone, but it always does that.
Yeah, because look, dude, I could sit here and talk, and look, I can hear myself feeding back.
I want to turn my mic off, see if it comes up, because I hear y'all perfectly fine.
Well, that's generally how it works, man. The person that has the feedback doesn't hear the feedback. Everyone else does.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up, too.
I hear everything clearly.
I see. Laughing Dog, can you hear me? Put a big fat middle finger in the chat if you hear me all right.
You know what I think with Zuckerberg, he's trying to distance. I mean, because he's using a lot of business and law language and stuff like that. Watch the video stuff. He's trying to distance his company from the FBI. But the one thing that he sat there and said was, he goes, "Oh, my company doesn't do it." Oh, we hire fact checkers. Then a question comes: who's the fact checkers then that you sat there and hire?
Who's fact checking the fact checkers?
You know, right? You know what I'm saying? Because because number one, before they were doing this, okay, he said that the FBI came and told him that there was going to be some misinformation, and that was before. That was before the Biden laptop even came out. You know what I'm saying? This is from what he said to.
Better be careful saying that, dude. Better be careful saying that. I just got on this motherfucking platform with this thing. You get me a strike my first night on the new platform.
Dude, I mean, why are we watching this then? I mean,
because they're saying it, not me.
Well, I must repeating what repeating what Zuckerberg said.
We haven't even made it to that part yet, have we?
Oh, you haven't seen it yet?
No. Have we made it to the part about the laptop yet?
No.
I'm giving you spoilers, man. Oh shit.
Yeah, shit. Dude, man, leave it to a black guy to ruin the movie every fucking time.
Dude, I thought you already saw it and you just put it in there. My bad.
No.
Spoiler alert.
Heads up, man.
Yeah, I watched it. I just didn't jump on it all like that. I'm watching other stuff too as well.
Nope, I haven't watched it. I'm watching it in real time, like half listening and half falling asleep. But let's finish watching some more. So let's hear about this get brought up. One quick second. There we go.
Ad in some other country's election.
I hear you. I hear you.
I want to make sure that ad is especially in countries that have lost.
Did you want to say something, Cyber?
I just said we lost him. We lost 4D.
Probably his jank ass Obama phone on that Struggle Wireless.
Let's hear the video.
Laws around that are coming from someone who's a valid citizen or at least in that place. So there's a bunch of, I think, I don't know, one theme in my worldview around this stuff, and when it gets to some of the stuff that we talked about before, is like, I don't think that this stuff is black and white or that you're ever going to have like a perfect AI system. I think it's all trade-offs all the way down, right? And you could build a system and you can either be overly aggressive and capture a higher percent of the bad guys, but then also by accident take out some number of good guys, or you could be a little more lenient and say, okay, no, the cost of taking out any number of good guys is too high, so we're going to tolerate having just a little bit more more bad guys on the system. These are values questions, right? Around what do you value more, and those are super tricky questions. And part of what I've struggled with around this is I didn't get into this to basically judge those things. I got into this to design technology that helps people connect, right? It's like, and like, I mean, you could probably tell when we spent the first hour talking about the metaverse and the future.
I don't believe you.
Whole technology roadmap to basically give people this realistic sense of presence. It's like, that's what I'm here to do, right? So this whole thing that's like arbitrating what is okay and what is not, I obviously have to be involved in that because this is at some level, I run the company and I can't just abdicate that. But I also don't think that as a matter of governance, you want all of that decision-making vested in one individual. So I think one of the things that our country and our government gets right is the separation of powers. So, one of the things that I tried to create is we created this oversight board. It's an independent board that basically we appointed people whose kind of paramount value is free expression, but they also balance that with things like when is there going to be real harm to others in terms of safety or privacy or other human rights issues. And
it's official. I'm just here saying it now before it comes out further on down the line. This motherfucker's on crack. Seriously, dude. He's on crack, and he has to have been shooting up that crocodile shit too.
Oh, man, that stuff will rot your skin off your bones.
It'll obviously rot the fucking truth out your head too.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, just imagine somebody that makes their entire empire based on machines that somebody else makes. You kind of get stuck, find yourself being somebody's tool.
You're literally lost in the machine.
Yeah.
As a machine that's been machined by a machine.
Who made who? Some maximum overdrive shit there,
Yep.
man.
Mental health will drive you mad.
Skynet's version of maximum overdrive.
Like I said, you said who made who? Mental health. It'll drive you mad.
You're terminated.
I'll be back.
And basically, that board, people in our community can appeal cases to when they think that we got it wrong, and that board actually gets to make the final binding decision, not us. So, in a way, I actually think that that is a more legitimate form of governance than having just a team internally that makes these decisions, or maybe some of them go up to me, although I don't spend a ton of my time on this on a day-to-day basis. But like, I think it's generally good to have some kind of separation of powers where you're architecting the governance so that way you have different stakeholders and different people who can make these decisions, and it's not just like one private company.
I would just like to say I don't give a fuck what he thinks is gooder or not gooder, because I don't trust a crackhead.
That's making decisions even about what just happens on our platform.
How do you guys handle things when they're a big news item that's controversial? Like, there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York Post.
Yeah, we have that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. I mean, basically the background here.
Lies!
The FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have, if something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third-party fact-checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
it got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely.
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful. But I mean, basically, a lot of people were still able to share it. We got a lot of complaints that was the case. Obviously this is a hyper political issue. So depending on what side of the political spectrum, you either think we didn't censor it enough or censored it way too much. But we weren't sort of as black and white about it as Twitter. We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's a very professional law enforcement, they come to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, then I want to take that seriously.
Did they specifically say you need to be on guard about that story?
Oh, whoa.
He just asked him so nicely. He's like, do you think?
Did he just say that the FBI is a more professional, or how did he? We got to listen to that again. Hold on.
Yeah.
We got a lot of complaints that was the case. Obviously this is a hyper political issue. So depending on what side of the political spectrum, you either think we didn't censor it enough or censored it way too much. But we weren't sort of as black and white about it as Twitter. We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's like very professional law enforcement.
Very professional law enforcement?
He says the feds are subjective.
Very professional law enforcement?
So investigation is now enforcement, huh? So is that like somebody has the pen and the sword at the same time?
So now they're creating the law that they're enforcing while they're actually coercing and entrapping citizens into breaking the law they created for them to break.
It sounds just like 46.
And that's professional?
In this subjective reality he's painting, yes, because he started out by saying he still believes such and such.
What makes them professional? That they wear suits? That they drive black Beamers?
That they got him by the balls?
Ah, there it is. There it is. Fair enough.
They come to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, then I want to take that seriously.
Did they specifically say you need to be on guard about that story?
No, I don't remember if it was that specifically, but it basically fit the pattern.
When something like that turns out to be real, is there regret for not having it evenly distributed and for throttling the distribution of that story?
Okay, if I wanted
what
a
do you mean
spoon
evenly
in my head...
I mean evenly in that it's not suppressed. It's not...
Yeah. I mean, it's...
If you want a what in your head?
If I wanted a spoon in my head, I'd go to Hannibal. He'd at least feed me my own brain instead of just hollowing it out.
With a side order of Chianti beans or fava beans.
Yes, please.
Actually, he never says that.
Well, damn.
Just so you know.
You're right.
But he does say some other shit.
He says way too much.
Yeah.
Having it evenly distributed and for throttling the distribution of that story.
What do you mean evenly distributed?
I mean evenly in that it's not suppressed. It's not.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks.
What do you mean evenly distributed?
Because, it turned out after the fact.
What do you mean? What's a woman?
No one was able to say it was false, right? So basically, it had this period where it was getting list distribution. So yeah, I mean, but I think like, I think it sucks though. I think in the same way that probably having to go through like a criminal trial but being proven innocent in the end sucks. Like it still sucks to have like that you had to go through a criminal trial, but at the end you're free. So it's I don't know if the answer would have been don't do anything or don't have any process.
I'm sorry, but that's a horrible fucking what's he trying to do? Comparison.
Analogy?
No, yeah, comparison, analogy, whatever, because sorry your information was wrong, but you get to go free as opposed to sorry we throttled that information, but you just got to deal with the person that, we decided we were going to make sure that all the negative shit got throttled about him on.
Yeah,
because I'm not bringing...
You see how they're trying to establish a certain law and order system? Subjective to the people who operate the machines, who are owned by the people who make them.
And the machines run a machine that activates the machine inside the machine.
Skynet's in maximum overdrive, man.
Ooh, that's a video game. And a movie. And a song. And a band. Shit.
Yeah.
We're fucked.
Talk about your multiverse.
The process was pretty reasonable. We still let people share it, But obviously you don't want situations like that.
But it's certainly much more reasonable than Twitter's stance, and it's probably also the case of armchair quarterbacking, right? Or at least Monday morning quarterbacking, I should say, because in the moment you had reason to believe, based on the FBI talking to you, that it wasn't real, and that there was going to be some propaganda. So what do you do?
Yeah.
And then if you just let it get out there, and what if it changes the election and it turns out to be bullshit? That's a real problem. And I would imagine that.
What if? I'm pretty sure that had a lot to do with the ifs of thes and its.
What if, kind of, maybe, sort of, whatever?
Right.
You know? No, you don't.
Hey,
Can you?
I'm catching what you're not throwing.
There you go.
Those kind of decisions are the most difficult. The decisions of like what is allowed and what is not allowed.
Yeah. I mean, what would you do in that situation?
I don't know what I would do. I would have to like really thoroughly. Well, first of all,
What would you do in that situation when you're basically being told that you get to be the vanilla god of the world?
The EMP?
ESP.
Right. The all-knowing, all-seeing, all-dancing crap of the world.
But can it break dance?
Yeah.
We know it can break stuff, but can it break dance? Oh, come on.
you're dealing with the New York Post, which is one of the oldest newspapers in the country. So I would.
We don't give a fuck about that old man. He can eat shit. He's got fucking Alzheimer's anyhow, with side order dementia.
Say I would want to talk to someone from the New York Post, and I would say, how did you come up with this data? Like, where are you getting the information?
The machine. Created by the machine. That's inside the machine, controlling the machine.
Oh, hey, come on, man.
How do you know?
Like my old grandpappy used to say when we was living in the mountains of Delaware, she'd tell me, son, now, if it ain't broke, just keep fixing it till it is. And then when
Right.
it breaks, you'll be right there fixing it.
You already know how to fix it. Because you'll know what you broke it.
Whether or not this is correct, and then you have to make a decision because they might have got duped. It's hard because everybody wants to look at it after the fact. Now that we know that the laptop was real and then it was a legitimate story and there is potential corruption involved with him, what we think, oh, that should not have been restricted. That should not have been banned from sharing on Twitter. Right. I think everybody agrees with that. Even Twitter agrees with that. But the thing is, then they didn't think that. In the beginning, they thought it was fake. So what do? Like, if something comes along and the Republicans cook up some scheme to make it look like Joe Biden's a terrible person, and they only do it so that they can win the election, but it's really just propaganda.
I don't think they would have to make shit up to prove that. Just saying.
What are you supposed to do with that? You're supposed to not allow that to be distributed. So if they think that's the case, it makes sense to me that they would try to stop it. But I just don't think that they looked at it hard enough. When the New York Post is talking about it.
First off, we need to establish who they is. You're saying they way too many times. Who is they?
The ones with their fists up his ass.
Is it a metallic fist?
Yeah, it was sent back in the future, and it got smashed in a hydraulic press, and the only thing sticking out was the hand.
So is that where Elon's really from then?
From the future?
Of Rogan's ass?
I don't know. I don't know about that guy, man.
You know, they're pretty smart about what they release and what they don't release. If they're going over some data from a laptop and you could talk to a person, but again, like this is just one story, like one individual story. Like how many of these pop up every day, especially.
I'm pretty sure that Snowden already told us this 10 years ago. Just saying.
Regards to polarizing issues like climate change or COVID or you know foreign policy or Ukraine. Anytime there's like
that's the one that really gets me. Climate change. Climate change.
I'm pretty sure it's been changing like all the time.
Like
it's always.
It changes every fucking nanosecond of every day of all our lives.
Yep.
Hey, dude, at least they can say they're not lying.
Well, never let anybody call you a climate denier because we absolutely agree that there is a climate, okay?
And it changes.
So, just to make that clear, yep, and it changes.
Changes all the time. Hell, I watched the climate here change 16 different times today. So they are right.
like a really controversial issue where some people think that it's imperative that you take a very specific stance and you can't have the other stance.
Mm-hmm.
Like those moments on social media, those trouble a lot of people because they don't know why certain things get censored or certain things get promoted.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's like to be in your...
That was a generic response. Yeah, I agree. He's been hanging out. He's been hanging out with that one lady, ain't he? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that one. I'll say, man, the WEF and their use of the UHF and ULF and the EMF has me like WTF.
You forgot about the UHF and the VHF.
Oh, the VHF, yeah.
And the VHS. And the USB. You forgot that too. And the HDMI. And the TMI. And the PSA.
Well, I think a lot of these people are just missing their HIV. Honesty, integrity, and virtue. You remember that?
I do. Because I used that the other day on Trey's stream. I said that what's his name? Fucking Nate doesn't suffer from HIV.
People need to be more HIV positive,
Yes. More
honesty,
HIV,
integrity, and virtue.
They need to be passing HIV around like it's fucking Christmas in July.
Not the human immunodeficiency virus, of course. Just to clarify for the technocrats out there, we're talking about honesty, integrity, and virtue. Use it. Get you some.
The real HIV.
There you go.
Spot. And I was one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about is this, because like to be in your spot must be insanely difficult. To have, no matter what decision you make, you're going to have a giant chunk of people that are upset at you. And there might be a right way to handle it, but I don't know what the fuck right way is.
Well, I think the right way is to establish principles for governance that try to be balanced and not have the decision-making too centralized. Because I think that it's hard for people to accept that, like, some team at Meta or that I personally am making all these decisions. And I think people should be skeptical about so much concentration around that. So that's why a lot of the innovation that I've tried to push for in governance is around things like establishing this oversight board So that way you have people who are luminaries around expression from all over the world, but also in the U.S. Folks like Michael McConnell, who's a Stanford professor, who's like he was I forget which Republican president appointed him, but he was I think going to be considered for the Supreme Court at some point. He's a very very prominent and kind of celebrated free expression advocate, and he helped me set the thing up. And I think like setting up forms of governance around that are independent of us, that basically get the final say on a bunch of these decisions, and that's a step in the right direction. In the Hunter Biden case that you talked about before, I don't want our company to decide what's misinformation and what's not. So when we work with third parties and basically let different organizations do that. Now, then you have the question of, are those organizations biased or not? And that's a very difficult question, but at least we're not the ones who are basically sitting here deciding. We're not the ministry of truth for the world that's deciding whether everything is true or not. So I'd say...
And how dare you pervert a Harry Potter
This is not a solved
reference.
problem. Controversies aren't going away. I think that it is interesting that the U.S. Is actually more polarized than most other countries. So I think sitting in the U.S., it's easy to extrapolate and say, hey, it probably feels this way around the whole world. And from the social science research that I've seen, that's not actually the case. There's a bunch of countries where social media is just as prominent, but polarization is either flat or has declined slightly. So there's something kind of different happening in the U.S. But for better or worse, it does seem like the next several years do seem like they're set up to be quite polarized. So I tend to agree with you. There are going to be a bunch of different decisions like this that come up because of the scale of what we do. Almost every major world event has some angle that's like the Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp angle about how the services are used in it. So, yeah, I think just establishing as much as possible independent governance, so that way, I'll obviously have to be involved. Our teams, Nick Clegg, who I appointed to be the president for all the policy issues for the company. He was formerly the deputy prime minister in the UK, the successful politician there, and kind of very well versed in kind of government and all those political issues. We'll have to do some part of this, but I think also kind of getting to more and more independent governance is going to be an important part of how we do it.
Dude, this motherfucker just said he's passing the
Why do you
buck.
think the United States is more polarized? Like, what do you think is happening over here that's causing that?
He's got them shoes on, man. Moonwalking
I think
into the
that's...
future.
I'll speculate.
Of Rogan's
but I think that there are
asshole.
people who've studied and thought about this a lot more.
He's trying to get up in there. He's trying to worm his way in.
And I
because
think
there's
Rogan's
probably
going to let him. What do you
an
think?
environment issue that
If he does,
predates
it's
the
only
internet.
so he'll
Right,
he can
so,
flex on him later.
So I think we have
Hey, boy.
sort of.
Hey.
It seems like I don't want to
Hey,
say
you.
uniquely because it's probably we're
Over
not
there.
the only country that has this.
You look mighty nice
But
in them jeans.
Up there.
in terms of having like
Why don't you come over
What
here
do you
and
do it?
some of the news
fuck me up the ass?
is so far left and some of it is so far right. I think there's all this talk about filter bubbles on the internet, but I think even
What you doing
predating
with
this,
them
like going back to like the
skinny
70s
jeans,
or 80s when Fox News and all these other
Slow down.
cable
Get excited.
these kind of
Cause me
public
clench
media
my dick.
organizations were established
Clench my butt cheeks up and
that
rip your dick off.
has had a long-term effect, and people have studied that. But there might also be something about just the way that our governance is set up, where we have two parties, right? We have these primaries.
Yep, somebody's clipping that tomorrow and saying that I was making fun of fags.
It's almost like you're not promoting people who are trying to be kind of the centrist.
Yeah.
You're basically promoting people who are the extreme of their party. So I think that there are really sensible reforms like open primaries, right? That I think would probably have a pretty big impact on the political culture in the country. And some of these other countries that are a little bit more parliamentary, by definition, allow there to be more candidates on more parts of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But I want to be careful about not talking too
What do
far.
you think the chances are that Zuckerberg would be a
not
bitch in prison?
Political scientist, but I've obviously spent a little bit of time thinking about this because I think a lot of people want to point to social media as the primary cause of this, and I just think when you look at the fact that polarization has been rising in the U.S. since before the internet, that just makes it seem like it's very
That's a
unlikely
lie.
that social media is kind of the prime mover here. And then if you look at the fact that there are all these other countries around the world where social media is used just as much, yet the polarization is flat or just not growing that quickly, or in some places even going down, kind of suggests that that really is not the primary thing that's going on. So I don't know. I mean, it's a really tough set of questions.
I think you're dead on with the open primary idea, because this idea that it's only party loyalists that get to vote on each side, you're promoting this ideological adherence instead of reasonable ideas that people can enjoy or not enjoy, and resonate with or not. I think
Gotcha.
I don't think social media is to blame, but I think social media, for a lot of people, it accentuates the divide because it gives them more time to immerse themselves with it. And I think it's an unfortunate aspect of some people that they spend a lot of time distracted on things that don't immediately affect them. Yeah. But those things become their main focus in life. Yeah. And I think
don't squeeze them too
that's
hard,
a distraction.
climb up.
That's like almost like a form of procrastination that people get involved with. And it just seems like a natural thing with people. And I think it's a time management issue, and I think it's a discipline issue. And I think some people have never really been taught time management or discipline, especially in regards to the type of information that you take in. They just like see something that upsets them. What is that? What's going on? Why are they doing that? And then they just get upset.
And it won't let me.
And, I see.
Yeah, it won't let me.
Oh, wow. Oh, did you get it?
Yeah, for a minute. Go ahead.
Well, it was basically a description of let your real life take a back seat and your emotions will guide you. That's basically what was just pointed out there. Mm-hmm. They're wanting people to shut down their logical processing and their rational thought and just go on a whim, live life on a whim, and chase. You're just chasing. And who's the purveyor of your high?
Zuckerfuck.
Yep. And who's the manufacturer of what he's selling? He's the middleman.
Google.
They're a middleman too, because none of these platforms work without the machines, and somebody's making them. And think about what they're trying to push with the Green Pass and all this scan stuff and the rumors about chips, the scanning stuff. Like Amazon even has this thing they want to promote that can scan your palm, and they want everybody to invest their existence into these machines, just like the technocrats have. But it's actually the people that are making the machines that are creating the dependency. They're the ones that are basically fabricating the substance. And the experience on the machine is the high. It's the hardware and the software that they're pushing, and they got all these businesses grabbing them up, and they tried to make it to where even the members of society, in order to function in society, they want them all to be subject to what the machine says. What happens when you have to be identified by a machine that scans you, and one day you find yourself trying to go into a store and they say you can't come in because you're a red light. Oh, what did I do? I got my shots. I say these things when I'm supposed to. Oh, it's because you have a picture of an American flag or a picture of a cross on your profile, and that's been patriotism or faith has been deemed a mental health risk.
It already is.
Yeah, they're trying to turn everybody into a number. Where else is everyone in the population just a number? Prison.
Their main focus in life.
Yeah.
And I think that's a distraction. That's like almost like a form of procrastination.
We
that
were
people
past
get
this,
involved
right?
With. And it just seems like a natural thing with people. And I think it's a time management issue, and I think it's a discipline issue. And I think some people have never really been taught time management or discipline.
Yeah,
especially
right
regard
Was basically
it's right on it.
that. But if you get sucked into that world of just looking for things to complain about, that's really you. You don't have to do that. No one's forcing you to do that.
Bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I think your point around what do people have control over is really important, because I think the people who are happy and productive, I think, tend to focus on things that they have some agency over.
Yes.
Feel
And-
Good Inc.
It's not that the other issues aren't important, right? And national civic issues, I mean, they matter, but there probably is a healthy balance where, yeah, I mean, this just goes back to the time management conversation.
If you're happy and you know it, suck a lie.
Feel Good
If-
Incorporated.
If you're happy and you know it, suck a lie. If you're happy and you know it, and you don't know how to show it, if you're happy and you know it, suck a lie.
Suck will lie.
Conversation we were having before, which, I mean, you could spend all your day and more 1,000 times over just reacting to things that are going on in the world. But
Yeah.
Reacting.
I do think there's really a thing around kind of narrowing the aperture in your life to like what's around you, the people you care about.
So he's saying put your blinders on.
I don't know. I think that does drive a lot of happiness for people, and so I think it's one of the interesting questions is how do we balance now having access to like an just historically unprecedented amount of information about issues that are going on in other places, which on the one hand drives, in theory, it should drive more transparency and accountability and energy towards those things. But I mean, maybe that just needs to that energy needs to come over a balanced over a longer period of time or something. Like I tend to think that all the transparency that we've gotten from social media will lead to good progress on a lot of things. But I do think it can, if you just focus on kind of broader issues and not. If you don't focus, like I do think that there's a certain thing.
What
about
are these broader
happiness
issues that you're talking about there, Zuck? Are we talking about Lizzo's fucking space between, one thigh and the other?
That's broad space, then.
Or are we talking about the gap that nobody wants to stick their penis in on her? Or are we talking about the empty-ass space between one ear and the other?
What about that space between Abrams' left incisor and the right incisor?
Oh, what about that space between Patrice Culler's one hand that's washing the other hand?
What about that space between Joe Biden's left and right ear?
Hell, what about that space between Joe Biden's mouth and ass?
Empty.
But they like to sit and rub my leg and push the hairs down because I had a lot of hairs on my legs, and then they'd watch how the water would make it rise back up.
The hair would pop back up again. Corn Pop was a bad dude, man.
Bad dude.
But I'll tell you this, unlike my bicycling community, with notable exception, the skateboarding communities are an incredibly diverse community with incredibly diverse people and ideas.
And people
they
that
say fuck you a lot.
Yep, and some people are still riding mountain bikes with training wheels.
Let's go, Brandon.
I don't know who this Brandon guy is, but man, they like him.
You know, what's right around you in your world.
Most definitely. And that's not to say that you shouldn't get upset about important issues. You know, like and express yourselves. It's just a matter of like how much time you're spending on it.
Yeah.
You know,
Express yourself.
and unless you are really disciplined and really careful with your time, you can get sucked into these things, and you could waste your life like just arguing with people online. And I just don't. I don't think it's healthy for folks.
I don't think he needs to tell Zuck about sucking at or on anything.
You know, one reason, something he just pointed out is one of the reasons I try and make it a habit of telling people thank you for your time, so that it'll get into their head somehow that it's valuable.
Yep, that's why I don't like liars, man. They waste everyone's time. Oh shit! Let's hurry up, get through this. I'm falling. Yeah,
Oh, sounds like
you know who that sounds like. Yeah.
For entertainers and comedians in particular, it's really bad. Like, I see so many comedians that get so much anxiety from like reading comments and going back and forth with people who are like talking shit to them on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, like, don't do that. Like, it's really bad for you.
Yeah, no, I struggle with this too.
Do you?
Well, I mean, on the one hand,
Liar!
this is it's free product feedback,
Right.
So, I mean, so like, I actually think this is like one of the hard things about it's. You don't want to be so closed that you're not listening to criticism, because then you're not going to grow.
Right.
But I think
He thinks
finding
everybody's
people
stupid, man.
But,
outlets
but what if
that
criticism is seen as an
will
aggression?
provide
What if
criticism,
they see criticism
but
as
from
angry?
a place of actually trying to help you grow rather than tear you down is very rare.
This dude cannot be fucking serious, right? I don't know who this guy is, but he does not sound anything at all like the guy that was testifying in front of the Senate.
Yeah, he's not convincing me. Not dancing around like that.
Because that guy in front of the Senate had a fucking broom handle shoved up his ass and was telling everything.
One says too much, one says too little, and then they've got ignorance on one side, hysteria on the other. Fire and ice making fire.
I blame it on Sophia. She's the one controlling them all. Let's listen to some more lies.
So I don't know. I struggle with this. I do sometimes feel like I need to. I do want to try to understand all of the different perspectives that people have.
You're fucking
but
stupid.
I think the thing that's tough is that a lot of those people aren't necessarily trying to help us build something better, right? So
Yeah.
and there is just a lot of negativity in it, like gets to you, right? And I think there's a question of balance where, at what point are you kind of better off? And it's like, yeah, you want to push forward on the things you believe in, but you don't want to, put on blinders and not consider alternative viewpoints. But then you could spend all your time looking at critique that's not necessarily trying to be constructive, and then that's just going to be super negative for your mental health. So yeah, I mean, I think probably a lot.
I'm sorry, but I was always told that if it walks like a turtle and quacks like a duck, then it's a crocodile.
A lot of the happiest and most productive people, or at least they're. I don't think you're ever going to carve out. I don't know. I don't think you should want to close off all that stuff completely, but I think at least being able to carve out a good amount of your day to be able to focus on like what you want to push forward and like things in your life that matter is. I think that's just really important to like, I don't know, being a grounded person.
I think it's also important to establish an ethic where you communicate with people online the same way you communicate with them.
I'm sorry, but I think a machine's interpretation of what grounded means and the rest of us are two totally different versions of grounded.
Yeah, it sounds like some squishy, sandblasted brain bullshit. Just like Uncle Joe. Hi, my name is Joby Brandon. Hi, kids. Do you like Primus? Want to see me close both of my eyelids? Want to try crack and get fucked up worse than my son Hunter is?
4
My
years
brain's
later.
like scrambled eggs. And I got hairy legs.
4
Sorry,
years later.
We could roast Joe all day long. Joe Biden, that is. Not
Me personally, I would rather have a sleepy, creepy Uncle Joe back than whoever this fucking weirdo is.
Yeah, this is the one with his earlobes glued to his head. The other one had his earlobes were free hanging.
Yeah, his earlobes are glued to his head, but the front of his face sags all the time.
Maybe he's wearing a Joe suit. He needs to just pull the back of his head up like the Edgar in Men in Black. How
do you get a hold of a Zuckerberg suit?
You got to find the lab where they're making them. They probably got like 50 more on standby.
I feel like we're all getting robbed out of a really good Halloween costume.
If they were in the room with you.
You know what? I think Zuckerberg was the love child of what's his name, Bubble Boy, and Napoleon Dynamite.
Whoa! I'll have to look into that.
I'm not saying it's true, but I'm not saying it's a lie. But it could be possibly both.
It sounds feasible to me.
It makes sense if you don't think about it.
And I think that is not something that a lot of people adhere to. People, they talk to people on Twitter like it's not a real human they don't have real feelings, and you're just trying to say the most biting and mean and cutting thing that you can.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. I don't do that. I used to engage in it. Like, I'd used to argue with people back and forth, and then I realized, like, what am I doing? Like, this is not good. I always feel like shit. I never feel good. Even if I win the arguments, it doesn't feel good. It's all you're filled with anxiety, and then a new fire starts up in the comments. You know, like someone else.
He's lying. This is coming from the dude that takes DMT and wrestles with fucking lions and bears. Doesn't feel good about it, my ass.
Also jump in, and then you got a new opponent, and like, what are you doing? Like, well, that's a massive resource problem. Like, it's a giant issue in whether or not you want to focus on important things in life, or whether you want to like win these little verbal battles between people on Twitter or Facebook. It's just it's unnecessary.
Yeah,
it's just for allocation of resources. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, what we hear from our community is that that's not what people want to.
Whoa! Did you hear that?
Saying that there is, I think that
allocating people.
No, that old Zuck was in 1.5 times speed on his own, and then slowed down.
Oh.
You didn't hear that? He started out really fucking fast, and then he slowed down to normal speed. That was wild. It was like the glitched. You're a mean one, Mr. Glitch.
They're talking about resources, and I kept hearing them say me sources.
Saying what?
It's not resources they're talking about. They're talking about me sources.
Me sources?
Me.
Me sources?
Me.
Mine sources?
Mine sorcerers.
By sorcery.
Yep.
Binary.
Learning to code as we speak.
1s and 2s. 0s and 1s.
Sometimes what people tell you that they want to spend their time on is different from what they actually do spend their time on.
I'm sure.
But I think a lot of the time, even if people's revealed preferences of what they actually spend their time on are different, it's there's some truth and aspiration to what they think they want to spend their time on, that like there is some long-term value in helping out with that too. So that's why I've just consciously tried to, just downplay a lot of the political controversy on.
See how hard he choked that one down?
And, it's like, what do people come to our services for? It's connecting with other people.
We don't know yet, trying to figure that out.
And expressing what matters to you, which, I mean,
some of us are trying to get our shit back from us that you stole, dick.
Isn't some kind of big global issue. It's like something that matters in their life. Like, what's going on with my kid's life? How's my wife doing? What's going on in my local community? Right, and
you know how people used to know all that kind of stuff.
I don't know. I think that there's something that's powerful about being able to focus.
How's that, sir?
By being there with them, instead of plugged into a machine that filters information.
The more you know.
That and be a bit more grounded in that. And it's not that we do that perfectly, but I do think social media tends to allow that a lot more than previous mass media did, because by definition, media just had to focus on issues that concerned a lot of people at once, whereas I think one of the best
for being a smart dude, he's really stupid.
Local to just what matters to you and your friend group. I mean, what's more kind of local to you than like the specific people that you have relationships with? I mean, that's
your mama's vagina.
That's why so many people use it.
Very good point. And also, the interesting aspect of social media that I think
the clap she gave me that I had to explain to my wife.
Social issues. I mean, people have a greater understanding about how most people think about social issues today than we ever did in the past. We were sort of informed how we felt about things based on the news.
Now we're told how to feel.
The rare commentator on the news, or stories that were in the news, or editorials that were in the New York Times or what have you. And now you get a
feel like this or you're going to jail, bitches.
Day-to-day sense of how people feel about things. And of course, it's also clouded by people that are saying things to sort of virtue signal and get people.
Isn't it interesting that it's clouded by the glowies? The glowies have clouded everything. That's bright enough to see.
Yep, and they've got their ignorance in one hand and their hysteria in the other. Works like fire and ice.
The glowies just ain't glowing right anymore, man. That's got to be Bill Gates' fault.
Yep, there's one of the machine makers right there. The
like them
guy.
Based on the opinion they think is going to be the most likely to attract positive attention. But it at least is opening up this new field of people openly debating and discussing ideas that used to be only talked about by people that...
Now Rogan's on drugs. Dude, you need to lay off the weed there, buddy. I don't know what the fuck you smoked and got a hold of because it was bad. Bad. Because if you think people are openly discussing and debating anything of real substance on any platform and not getting their shit taken down, you are seriously deluded.
Yeah, I think that might be an echo from a forearm he took a couple years ago.
Has to be. Fucking bad. Dude, he's having an acid flashback.
Uh-oh. We can't lose you, Joe. Come back. Come back.
Please don't turn into a glass of orange juice on us, please.
are already approved and on television and in the media. So we sort of get this, but particularly about videos, right? Videos are a really interesting example of that, because someone can have a really concise and interesting perspective on something, and that'll get shared millions and millions of times. And it just has to go viral. It just has to catch someone's opinion and go, wow, she's got a really good point. And then that gets out there. That is really powerful. And that's something that never existed before, where just a regular person with an interesting idea can just catch fire.
Yeah.
Last time,
I think that's an area, hopefully, with...
Hey, the last time that happened, his name was Tesla, and he died after he had all his shit stolen from him.
Yeah, he died on the inside first, and he aged in isolation.
against his will.
Something.
There's no way they're ever going to convince me that he stayed there by himself of his own free will.
He never did marry.
That's because they didn't want his bloodline to be passed on. Stop that shit now before we end up with another one of him we can't control.
Yeah.
Fucking kills me.
Recommendation systems that will be able to be more possible in the future than has been in the past. I think as the AI can help people discover things that they might be interested in. But yeah, I mean,
why does it have to be only AI? Why can't it be both eyes?
I'm a little more mixed on this. I mean, I think on the one hand, I think the comments and actual discussions that happen online are not as good as they could be. I mean, I think like live interaction.
Not as good as it could have, but it would have been and should have.
That's hopefully an interesting discussion for people who are watching. But I think if you look at like comment threads, like you're talking about, I think that experience probably needs a significant amount of innovation before it's before it's good. But I do think being able to see.
He said you guys better get your shit together in them comment threads before he bans those next.
Maybe more like the original posts than the comments back and forth. Because like when I see a friend has some opinion on something, like I know where that person's coming from, right? In terms of their values and their life story, and that just means a lot more.
Jesus Christ, dude. How many times did they fucking rehearse this? That's all I want to know. How many times did they sit down over the phone, over fucking Zoom, while they're fucking recharging their fucking lithium battery that's in the fucking back of their head and drinking their fucking soy lattes mixed with fucking DMT and fucking moon rocks? All I'm saying is this is making stoners look bad.
More to me than, like, I don't know, the New York Times telling me, that something is good or bad.
Can we have Fear Factor Rogan back, please? I want that guy back. I don't know who the fuck this.
Cool.
I don't know who the fuck this guy is. Just saying.
And there's also a lot of diversity because people, tend to have friends who are from different backgrounds. And
did he just claim diversity too?
I think the average person basically, they had a few different media sources. They probably had, each one had some kind of.
Even after fucking whatever the fuck that one fucking stupid goddamn reality show was. Anyhow, even after he was done being a dumb game show host. I forgot where I was going, man. Fuck it. Say something. Save me.
I forget what that show was. You're not talking about Fear Factor. It's a money game show, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Survivor. That's what it was, Survivor.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure he was the host of that for a couple of years or 10 or whatever. I don't know. I could be wrong. Yes, I do. I absolutely do. Good call on that. Let's hurry up and get this done, man, because I'm tired. I'm not going to pause anymore. I'm just going to let it run.
Specific editorial leaning. And, now the data that I've seen on this actually is that social media generally exposes people to a way more diverse set of views.
Liar.
Now, there is a question about how people react to that. I think sometimes when people see stuff that they don't agree with, there's a
rage quit.
Productive way to present something that someone might disagree with in an unproductive way. And sometimes if you present something that someone's not going to agree with, they'll actually kind of shell up and disagree with it even more after being exposed to that point of view. So that's another area that we and the rest of the industry might be able to improve on over time. But I think that this notion around filter bubbles and like people only see one type of thing, I think it by this point has been pretty thoroughly debunked in terms of just
Liar.
like statistically the diversity of what you're seeing online from different sources is way greater than
I'm sorry,
than it
but
ever
the
was
National
before.
Enquirer.
I think
Snopes
people just
can't
don't make
debunk
very
anything.
compelling arguments. That's one of the reasons why so few people are willing to think and listen to differing opinions on things. It's so often people are either preaching to the choir
Yeah.
or shouting down at the person that has the opposing view instead of expressing themselves in a very neutral and objective way that considers all the possibilities. And this is like, this brings me back to fact checks, like fact checkers, because oftentimes fact checkers are incorrect and they are biased, and it is subjective as to whether or not what is a fact and what is not a fact, especially about, some more controversial issues. Like, how do
What's a
you
woman?
choose fact checkers? Like, and how does a
I
fact
don't know,
checker
man.
how do they go through a mountain of data and come to a conclusion, and then that is used for content moderation?
Yeah, so there's a whole discipline around, and like professional discipline around fact checking, where these organizations are supposed to basically they get accredited, and they're generally, I think, quite professional about how they do this. And
Generally.
And so, that's another thing is, not only did we not want to be deciding what is true or false, we also didn't want to be in the business of deciding which fact checkers are professional and not. So we
Right.
basically outsourced that to this accreditation. It's widely respected. So as sort of the best that there is, even though it's it's not without flaws, like you're saying. But what we tried to do was basically we give the fact checkers the basic guidelines to not focus on things that could be opinion-y, right? So there are things online that are like obviously, I don't know, just like obviously kind of wrong memes or I don't know, like crazy conspiracy theories or something like that. And
It's a meme.
I think that's a pretty categorically different set of things than like, is there some shade of to which some political candidate said something that was slightly false, and like, can we use that as an excuse to like ding them? Right. So
he's just making word salad.
Yeah, there's
Making
50 of them.
is working
instead
the way
of
it's
saying
supposed
wrong
to.
think bad.
The overall
Orange man math no good.
No good. 2 + 2 is whatever I say it is. It just does. Does what it's told. It puts the lotion on its skin.
Or it gets the
Or else
hose
it gets
again.
the ban again. He's basically trying to word salad his general thought, which is wrong think bad. Bastards.
There for a minute, I thought you were about to say his genitals, but this is like the most ridiculous fucking dude. This is like, I don't know. Dude's he's like literally fucking trying to mentally play double dutch and hopscotch at the same time.
All with a case of the squirts. He's getting shit everywhere, man.
Yep. And this was this was laundry day, so he had to go commando.
Hey, did you hear True Blood's joke? He said, what's the difference between anal and oral? Oral will make your day. Anal will make your whole week.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
He's got some good dirty dad
Dude,
jokes,
I'm going to
man.
tell you what, there's something just seriously wrong with his brain.
So he's just letting the...
No, I mean,
Going
don't
out.
get me wrong. I approve. I approve. Just saying. There's something not right up there.
Well, it's called eccentric genius. That's what it is.
Oh, that's what all you weirdos call yourselves.
Look, that's what I call that. It's fucking genius, man.
His delivery's just better than mine. My delivery's all off every time I try and do that shit.
Well, I think a lot of times you're trying to do it on the fly, and it's hard to think and speak at the same time.
No, I'm too big to fit on a fly, dude. And I don't like airplanes.
I've never been up.
Every time I get on one, I try and see this curve they've convinced me of that I can't find.
Yeah. I've never been up. I know a lot about aeronautics, aerodynamics, and airfoil, and all that shit. I don't know about the mechanics, but I do know about the flight.
I know that Chaotic's got a guy over there that claims to be a pilot, and I know that's got to be bullshit because there ain't no way a black dude's going to get a pilot's license and fly over the biggest fucking bathtub he's ever seen and not be able to swim.
So two great stereotypical fears at the same time.
No, it's just one. No, I'm just being a racist. Might as well. Fuck it.
You are the snowman, and you're angry, so...
I'm about to fucking change my name to fucking Even Angrier Snowman.
Even angrier.
Angrier Water Puddle.
Angrier water. Yeah, they're trying to give you a meltdown with all the brain boggling and cognitive dissonance.
Look, dude, all this fucking word salad and shit, and they don't even give me no dressing or no croutons to put on it. Just salad. Even rabbits don't like just salad.
Overwhelming majority of people in our community tell us that they don't want to see things that are kind of obviously false flowing through the system, right? It just decreases trust in the system, and if there was a way to get rid of that, then it's like people on both sides of the political spectrum would want that to be the case. I think where it ends up being an issue is when the fact check...
This is where it ends up being an issue, when none of what you said is what happens. When everything you just said is some fucking fabrication you just made up on the fly.
Yep, and everybody's just left to wonder.
I mean, because let's not sit here and act like everybody on the planet damn near doesn't use Facebook and doesn't know how it works.
What if maybe somewhat kind of sort of like, because I think I might feel so.
Well, then I could have maybe went and, and then whatever.
Exactly. Ish.
Checkers sort of veer towards getting into stuff that's
boom, mic drop,
obviously black and white and a little more political. I mean, not a lot. I mean, a lot of the stuff that's blatantly wrong isn't necessarily even political. It's just like stupid shit. And
then why silence it?
I think that those are the areas that I've seen that
a
become
little more.
That don't even make sense. Dude, that don't even make sense. Most of the stuff that we're dealing with ain't even political. It's just stupid shit. But we're going to silence it anyway because, Hitler and shit.
Yeah, they want to mediate society. That's why they call it social media.
You mean it has nothing to do with people being socialized?
No, it has to do with their form of socializing being mediated.
I never would have guessed it. I thought this was
plain sight.
I thought this whole time. You mean to tell me this whole time that this wasn't about me getting the best social experiment that money can't buy?
Experiment. There you go. You said it. Or did you mean experience?
That was a Freudian slip.
I think you said it right the first time.
That was a Freudian slip, bro.
Yep.
Because I said
fiction.
Because I said experience and can't buy. Or experiment and can't buy. Sorry.
Truth is stranger than fiction. Which I wish we could get some fucking truth out of this Borg.
Well, the hive is strong in this one, son.
Yeah, well, see, he's got me all emotional now because my head's been exhausted.
That's why I was taking a nap, dude. Huh. I'm curious. Have you figured out the question that I posed to you the other day that broke your brain?
To be honest, having the brain broken, I don't exactly remember the question. Just that I really appreciate the challenge.
Fair enough.
It's like jumping on an arcade that's set to level 10 difficulty, and you haven't played it before. You get in there, round one, you lose.
Wow. Awesome. Fair enough. Let's try and make it through the rest of this without... That way, I don't have a fucking epileptic fucking seizure or some shit. Lots of flashing colors.
Proceed with the torture.
Controversial.
How do you make decisions when, like, I can understand the wanting to stop the spread of misinformation, but there's certain things that are so dumb where I feel like they should be allowed to be spread, like flat Earth. Like if someone has a flat Earth theory, God, I want to listen. I want to listen because it's so dumb. I want to know, how does someone start to form these ideas? Because there's a thriving community. I don't know if you know. Have you ever Google hashtag space is fake?
I have not.
You should. There's
not sure I have enough time for that,
large group of humans out there that believe that we live in some sort of a dome and that there's like essentially
Like the Truman
light
Show.
bulbs hung in the sky. It's so dumb. But I mean, like, what do you do about that? Like, if I was running Facebook, I would let that stay. I would
I think
leave that in there. That's so dumb.
So one important nuance on this, though, is we don't block misinformation.
Bullshit!
We basically just have a label that goes on it that says that a fact checker says this is false, and show it a little bit less in the ranking and newsfeed.
But don't you stop a person's ability to share something
No,
with
no,
that
you-
that
No,
tag?
you can share it. You can share it.
But what if someone is a person that is known to spread certain misinformation? Don't you make it so you can't tag that person?
It depends on what the stuff is. We can go super deep on all the nuances. There's misinformation.
I'll be
that
back. I
could
gotta go get a glass of
harm.
milk, man.
Right,
I'm
so
start. My
misinformation
acid
that
reflux
veers
is acting
on
up from
things
this
that lead
shit.
to violence or health safety that we treat in one way, and then there's just misinformation, like stuff that's wrong that people say reduces trust in the system when they see it, but that we have no reason to believe is going to lead to any like physical safety issue for people, and that we
Then
just
why
treat
do you
differently.
have a
That's
block
like, yeah, we'll put a
feature?
label on it. We'll, if we have the choice to either show your cousin's, giving birth photo or that, we'll kind of show the other content above it. But fundamentally, we're not going to prevent you from sharing it or prevent people from seeing it.
You know, when
I
Jack
don't
Dorsey and I
think
had a
you
conversation
understand
about
what
this, one of the
prevention
things he said
means.
that he was in favor of and was trying to promote the idea of two versions of Twitter. He wanted to have a moderated Twitter, and then he wanted to have a Wild West Twitter. Like he wanted to have something where it's like 4chan or something, just like let people do whatever they want and just open up those barn doors, and as soon as you go in there, it's chaos. Like, what do you think about that? And do you think that there is an important function of content moderation, that to set a tone? I mean, you can kind of see it.
Yeah, I think that the tough thing is, so there's like, most of the categories of harmful content are things that I think almost everyone would agree on, right? So it's like, like you don't want foreign nations interfering and stuff like the
Yeah.
like the bot
If you're not
networks. You
going to
don't want
censor people,
terrorism.
why
You don't
even
want
think about it?
child pornography. You don't want like blatant intellectual property
Of course.
violations. You don't want people promoting violence. Okay, so you go through all this stuff. I think that's most of that stuff. I actually think is not that controversial, right? It's
Right.
like people want it gone, and they expect us to, as a technology company that operates at scale, to be able to do this reasonably well. So then I think that there are a couple of issues. One is sometimes those systems get that stuff wrong, and we say that something is bad when it wasn't, or we miss something that is bad. So I think that there's that type of issue,
Or
which
we'll
is
just
like
say it's
you just make an
bad when it's
operational
convenient
mistake, which
for
is
us, and then
important,
backpedal on
but
it
is
2
kind of one type
years
of issue.
later.
Then I think you get into the types. There are a couple of types of issues, and I think misinformation is probably the biggest one, where there is actually just not widespread agreement at all about how to handle it. I think that a large percent of the population, the vast majority, says that they don't want to see misinformation, but then people disagree on what misinformation is, right? So,
Yeah.
So people don't want to see what people don't want to see what they think is misinformation, but honestly, even more than that, they don't want other people to be kind of to see what they think is misinformation. So I think
Yeah.
that's pretty difficult because then different people have different views.
They don't kind of because what
I think
they
that
think.
There,
somewhat-
I mean, maybe you could have a policy like what Jack was talking about for that type of content. I mean, I don't think you're going to have a Wild West version of social media where you're just allowing terrorism free for all. I mean, that's crazy.
They have
Right?
I wish
the
we could go back to
Taliban on
MySpace.
Twitter, which is really wild because Donald Trump isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, tougher. I'm not super deep on
Oh,
Twitter's
that's
policies,
Yeah.
so tough for me to comment on that.
Well,
But
Twitter has pornography. I mean, they have hardcore pornography. You could just accidentally stumble onto someone you follow's page. And
yeah, so
Yeah, but explain that one. On Twitter, kids can go watch hardcore pornography right on that shit, but God forbid you question whether or not fucking some creepy dude that spent an entire campaign in his basement really won an election or not.
Yep, no question. Because the numbers don't lie. Yeah, well, who's showing us the numbers? Oh, we don't like to talk about it. We're gonna sit on that for 2 years. We'll tell you later. After it doesn't matter anymore. Just make your decision. Just go with it,
Dude,
and then we'll fill you in later.
yeah, for when we... But you'll be real glad when you find out the answers to those questions and more are all on Hunter's laptop.
Yep.
So that's
October's
something
gonna
that
be
just
crazy.
is more of going back to your point around just for the community feel.
Mm-hmm.
Pornography is a thing that we don't allow, and I think it's somewhat controversial because I mean it's like you could make a pretty good argument. I think that like this isn't doing physical harm to people. I mean I know that there's arguments on both sides of that, so I don't want to.
I don't know. Have you ever seen a guy who jacks off too much and he's got a real bad case of tennis elbow and fucking carpal tunnel? I'd say that's some serious bodily injury.
And a boomerang-shaped weenie.
And a hand that looks like that, it's all gimped up and shit. He jacked off so much it looks like one hand's got rheumatoid arthritis.
Go super deep on that, but like,
Oh,
but
Jesus Christ.
I'd say our reason for not wanting pornography is more for the feel of the community than
All these underhanded
sense of
fucking
harm.
dirty
Well,
jokes.
And obviously, child pornography is different. That's
Well, he
that's
started
obviously
out
real
saying
harm.
you can feel a ball in your hand, and that's
but I think
cool.
that's one category of content.
But we ain't going to go deeper than that, because, Jesus Christ.
It might get a little dark.
Dear sweet baby Jesus. Oh, come save us the sanity.
Yeah, a whole
content
lot
where
of
it's
homoerotic
kind of more of an
undertones
editorial moderation
coming from this
decision.
guy.
I don't think it's a political decision. It's more of like we want the feel of the service to be about people connecting with their friends.
We want the feel of the service to be people connecting with their friends.
Oh. Like mentally, emotionally, physically?
Sexually.
Oh.
Gay sexually.
Ew.
Preferably Transformer sexually gay.
Watch out for them funky socks. They're out there. I hear old, who was it? Beto O'Rourke was trying to scratch him an itch, and now he's itching all over. He got them funky socks on his feet.
Hey man, it's pretty bad that you used to have to only be worried about whether or not a woman's crotch smelled like a bad can of tuna. Now you got to be worried about whether or not it smells like burnt hot dog water.
What?
And family and not necessarily coming across that kind of content. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of, I think, how the whole thing breaks down. I mean, there's most of the stuff that I think gets taken down. Actually, most people would agree needs to get taken down. And then I think there's mistakes. And then there's, stuff like how do you handle misinformation, which I think society as a whole doesn't agree on. So my basic approach to that is give people choice.
Free speech,
and
nigga!
Try, so basically don't take it down, but basically let people share the stuff, but also flag if something, if an accredited fact checker said it might be false, and also get us, that we shouldn't be the ones deciding what's true and false, so kind of try to set up this independent governance to do that. I think it's a pretty well-balanced system. It's not perfect. We'll need to keep on iterating on it and making it better over time, but those are the basic principles for kind of how I think about navigating that.
One thing that people freak out about, and oftentimes I'm a little skeptical of their concerns, is people think they're being shadow banned. It's always people think they're being shadow banned. Like, is shadow banning a real thing? And
He's
what
going to
does that
say
mean?
no.
Well, I mean, there's no policy that is shadow banning, so I think it's sort of a slang term. But that maybe refers to some of the demotions that we're talking about.
Maybe.
Right? So if someone posts something that gets marked as false by a fact checker, then it'll get somewhat less shown in
Just
feed.
that
Maybe
post, or all of
differs
their
to
posts is for
some
the future?
I think that there's,
somewhat.
if you do it once, then it's that, and then I think if there's like some history within a page, or there's kind of different rules for pages and groups and different things, then there can be some kind of broader.
Yeah, it's all
broader
different. Just
policy
mix it
that
up.
applies, but
Yep.
It's all in
when
good
I look into
fun.
this stuff, because I mean, a lot of my friends and
We're
people
just
I know
playing
send me
games,
examples,
man.
Because unfortunately, there are a lot of mistakes. I mean, I think part of the issue is that if there's 3.5 billion
Zuckerberg
people
said
using
it
these
was
services,
all in good fun.
And if we make
You got pox
you know,
on your weasel.
a mistake 0.1% of the time, that's like still millions of mistakes,
Right.
So it's like, so there's all these cases, and that sucks, right? It's like, so there are all these cases where we missed something that we should have taken down, or we enforced something that we weren't supposed to. But I'd say,
Yeah, all of
as
that.
it relates to kind of concerns about shadow banning, a lot of the time when I look into stuff, people attribute some motive, or like, this is like Meta has some stupid policy in place that blocked this, or they're banning this thing. And a lot of the time, it was either just a mistake, so nothing was supposed to happen, but like there was some bug in the
Bullshit.
system, or some system didn't work the way it was supposed to, which is a real issue, but it's not an ideological issue.
Hey, Zuckerberg,
and-
what's a metaphor?
A lot of the time also, when people are worried about stuff like shadow banning, it actually, like, maybe their post just wasn't as good or something, and it didn't and it just didn't get the
What a
distribution that
lie.
they wanted it to. But I don't know. I mean,
It's a
you highlighted some
metaphor.
examples to me a few weeks ago of someone who was saying that they like couldn't follow your account or something, and you posted it, and it was, and I mean, so I like looked into it because I'm like, okay, I'm going to see Joe soon, and like I kind of want to understand what these issues are, and it like that's an example where it's like it had nothing to do with your account. It was like it was basically there was some bug, and that person had kind of taken a bunch of actions quickly or something, and like we basically just for spam protection stopped them from taking a bunch of actions. But it's like, so I think people sometimes read in like some
bunch of
ideological
actions.
bent or policy thing into this that I think often isn't there. But unfortunately,
Like,
there just are
He
the scale
just
is
said
so
that he
big,
shadow banned you,
there's gonna
Joe.
be millions of mistakes. You're going to be able to
He's saying
find
stop
almost any
people
pattern that you
from
want in
doing
that
a
much
bunch
data.
of actions.
So I haven't figured out how to crack that nut of kind of communicating.
It's also an interesting problem because there's people don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. So there's this like sort of in their eyes a lack of transparency. It's like how does this
Yeah.
all work? So they assume there's nefarious intentions and that someone's censoring them.
Yeah. I mean, how do you have any? I mean, I'm curious how you'd think about this if you were in my position.
I
Well,
thought
I
about
know
it.
for a fact
I
that
would
it happens
imagine
on
it would be
YouTube.
incredibly overwhelming, and I'd probably be on Xanax. I don't know.
Or you just
'Cause
work out more.
Yeah, I'd
Just
work out more.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take Xanax.
just like-
but just
Just do
the
like more MMA.
but the amount of foreign countries that you're dealing with too. I mean, you have Facebook in how many languages?
Oh, I don't even know.
Yeah.
I mean, we just rolled out an AI tool that allows us to translate posts to all these languages where they're. It's like just.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like hundreds of. I think it's more than 100 languages. I don't want to.
Well, I love to use that on Instagram, like especially because I follow a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, and they'll say something in Portuguese, and I
yeah.
can click the translation.
Yeah. That's there. That
It's
should
dope.
be there.
Yeah,
there
no,
should
it
be.
is there. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's really nice, but the amount of countries that are using this
Yeah.
and talk like I wouldn't even want to just pay attention to the people that are speaking English. If you're trying to moderate all the people that are speaking, a million different languages, like how?
Oh yeah.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
This is one thing I wanted to talk to you about is when you first started Facebook.
Back when he
clearly
sold
could have never imagined that it would become what it is now.
it, back when
Like,
he stole
what was
it from
it
them
like
two kids.
going through the stages of growth of this thing? Where great, it's successful.
Yeah.
Oh hey, Facebook is taking
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
Holy shit, we're overthrowing governments. Like what is happening? What is this thing now?
It's
Yeah.
like that in
What
there.
has that been like for you to assume
Yeah, he didn't
this
laugh at that one, did he?
position
Nope.
and to have this position evolve and spread, and for you yourself to become this worldwide figurehead and become this insanely
Oligarch.
successful person who is involved
Oligarch.
in this social.
So, look, Zuckerberg, we're going to put it like this. We're going to dumb it down. We're going to AAV it to you. When did you sell out to the feds?
social media platform that is so massive. It's just so beyond. And now with WhatsApp and you have Instagram and you have Oculus, you have all this going on. I mean,
Yeah.
am I freaking you out just thinking about it? You're
No.
thinking-
I've spent a long. Yeah. It's like breathe deeply. No, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I mean,
I can imagine.
just like it's like why us? Like what? Like what?
Right.
What happened?
How much do you think Joe had to pay him to get this interview?
It was
'Cause
worth it. Whatever it was.
Because, dude, I think this is the longest interview he's ever given.
We're kind of stretching it out. How long is the whole video?
3 hours.
Yeah, that is a little more than most, isn't it?
Yeah. I think he sat. Well, I take that back. The what was it? The fucking congressional whatever fucking hearing. They got what, like a couple dozen hours out of him.
Oh, damn. I don't really know. I don't follow all this stuff. Sometimes I'll listen to a podcast while I'm at work.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let's finish this out. It's almost done. There's 13 minutes.
That we were the ones who built this, like me and this group
Where's
of people.
MySpace? Where'd it go?
So
Yeah,
He bought it.
here's my reflection on this, and I mean I'm curious for your view on if you think this is just crazy, but like when I was getting started, I remember the night that I launched the original Facebook website at my college. Right, it was just a website for my college to basically it was literally a Facebook. Right, it's like Harvard didn't have a paper Facebook, and I was like, this is stupid. Let's just make a version where people can input their own stuff because people like expressing stuff about themselves and people are really interested in learning about other people. So let's go do that. And and we can help people connect around that. So I launched it. I went to go get pizza with my friends. And that night, we were talking about how it was really cool that I got this out at Harvard and people were going to use it at Harvard, but someday someone was going to do this for the world. And it was not even like a possibility for me that that was going to be us. It was like completely obvious that it was going to be someone else, right? It was like we're just college kids. Like who are we to do this, right? It's you have like Google and Microsoft and Yahoo at the time, these like great technology companies that have thousands of engineers and like all these servers and all this resources. So it's like it just wasn't even a question. It wasn't even a hope that I had that we would do it. But then like, okay, so we just kind of kept going, right? So I launched it at Harvard, and then
What year was that?
2004, and a bunch of students from other schools started writing in, and as soon as I optimized the code and basically could make it so that I could run this at more colleges at the same time, I started launching at more colleges and like launched it at like 2 more colleges at a time, like every week, and it just kind of kept on going, and I think a lot of people just kind of like wrote it off, right? It was this thing that a lot of people in colleges loved, but people are like, okay, that's kind of a kid thing. It's not going to be a global thing. And I was like, no, someday someone's going to do this. It's going to be a global thing. But like Google and Microsoft and all these companies could never really get motivated to do it because there was probably a bunch of internal bureaucracy or forces that were like naysaying against like why this was a valuable thing. So then the people who were in college started graduating, and they kept on using it. So then it was like, okay, so this clearly isn't just a college thing. And we started in 2007, we opened it up beyond college so that anyone can sign up, and people of all different ages started signing up. And then the meme shifted from this is a college thing to this is a fad, right? Because people, you mentioned MySpace, and there's this whole string of social apps like this. There was Friendster and there was MySpace, and the whole thing was there's like one after another. So it's like, no, there's not going to be one for like 20 years, right? That lasts for 20 years or 30 years. It's like, this is a fad. And probably, inside Google or Microsoft, there were probably people who thought that this would be a cool thing to do and go build this, but probably a bunch of bureaucracy and people like naysaying on it. So we just kept on going. And then the next meme was, oh, it's never going to be a good business. Okay, okay, so there's 100 million people using it. They've been going for like 5 or 6 years. It's maybe it's not a fad. Maybe people are going to keep on using it, but I mean, there's only one good internet ads business, and it's Google. So it's like the chance that like someone can invent another one, it's like that seems really low. So let's I don't know, just was no one really motivated. So I guess my reflection on this is that I think with so many things in the world, I think we did it because we just cared more and actually believed in it. So we just kept going, right? It shouldn't have been us. Like so people had more resources all along the way and cared more. And I've just found that that's actually sort of something that I've noticed in other areas too. So if you notice, like, if you think about like what like Elon's doing with rockets, or like what we're trying to do with the metaverse, right? It's just like, these are sort of these crazy things. And I do think at some level, just the people who believe in them the most and are willing to spend like a decade or 15 years of their life kind of digging in the trenches when investors are telling you that it's not a good idea, or I don't know. I think like kind of care is probably undervalued in terms of determining who ends up doing what in the world. I think most people probably have an assumption of like something that is so obviously true to you that you just assume that other people are going to go do it. But just because it's so obvious to you doesn't actually mean that it's that obvious to other people.
Hold on.
Right? So, I mean, you probably have this around a lot of the stuff that you do, like the stuff that you talk about.
He just got done saying, I think most people probably, and now he's talking about what's obvious. Eat a dick.
He's eating a bunch of them.
Yeah, he's talking about cracking nuts. He meant milking. He put the slow squeeze on them, man.
Well, maybe if he would have let people fucking help find that laptop, he would have been able to find where Hunter hit all that fucking mountain of crack too.
Yeah, feds would still own him though.
Dude, man, my mind can't fucking go through no more of this. God. Seriously.
There's only, what, about 5 minutes left though, right?
Yeah. We'll finish
You're
it.
in it to win it. Let's go.
Shut up. Don't interrupt no more. Just listen.
All right.
The way you kind of explore all these different topics on your podcast, the way you do comedy. But
Quit stroking his fucking balls, Zuckerberg.
Where it's like where you feel like those things are just like so obvious that obviously other people should get them too, but then just like no one does.
Well, I think you had the advantage
It just happens.
in the early days of being young and having a perspective that's not overly influenced by commerce and by corporations and by corporate politics.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you think about like Google tried to do it with Google Plus. I remember I had a good friend that worked at Google, and
But it was too late then.
yeah, it was too late then.
Yeah.
I was joking around with her. I'm like, this is dog shit. This is never going anywhere. It's
And
terrible.
they didn't have an original idea. I mean,
Right,
they just.
exactly.
I mean, you can come late to something as long as you sort of have a unique contribution that you can bring to the
Right.
space.
But they didn't. Yeah. So you were trying to get people to escape, leave from other social media platforms to go to this other clunky one that is just basically like a beta version of some new Facebook or just
Yeah,
it
you can't
wasn't
build the
compelling.
same thing 6 years
Yeah.
later. Like, you have to add,
Yeah, it wasn't compelling. Well, it is interesting though, because it's like when a product like yours achieves escape velocity, it gets to this point where it's just so big, and it's like you have to have Instagram, you have to have Facebook. Everybody uses it. It's just one of those things, and I am always fascinated to like what is that like for the person who made it, and it's got to be so bizarre to see it just
It is.
continue to spread. I mean, it's not getting smaller, it just keeps getting bigger.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. Like you have 3 billion people, and it's getting
That
bigger.
was a
That's
3-part
nuts.
fucking dick joke.
Well, how long do you see yourself doing this? How long do you see yourself running it? Do you think there's ever going to come a point in time where the stress is just overwhelming? You'll like just pawn it off to somebody else, and
I'm not sure if that'll be the reason. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm probably going to do this for a while, just because. I mean, I kind of viewed
Just
the
because
phase
the
of
feds say I
company
can.
As the first phase was building Facebook. And it was like, okay, can we build a social product that's
Which
super
he
successful?
had little
and
to do with.
We did. We basically made like the most used service in the world. And then it's like, okay, like once you're lucky, but like, can we do this multiple times, right? So, and then that's when, we got Instagram joined us super early. I think there were 16 employees at the time, and I think it had 20 million people using it or something like super early. And
when
WhatsApp,
did you pick up Instagram? What year was that?
2012. It was the same year we went public, but it was really small at the time. Super talented team. Kevin, super talented guy who created it. Kevin and Mike, and did a lot of awesome work together. And then the WhatsApp folks joined. I mean, I think there were about 60 people working at WhatsApp. So these were super early things when they joined us. But we've scaled both of those too. I mean, WhatsApp now is, more than 2 billion people. Instagram is, I don't think it's quite 2 billion yet, but it's basically, it's on its way. So, and then Messenger, we kind of grew from scratch, and that has more than 1 billion people too. So it's like, okay, so now for the second phase of the company, it's like went from building one great social experience to now building 4. So it's like, all right, that's pretty good. We can do this. We can keep on evolving these things. And as you say, they keep on growing, and the businesses around them are good. We're just empowering a lot of entrepreneurs around the world. So really happy about all that stuff. And there's a lot more to do. But I look at a lot of what we're doing still just in those experiences feels constrained by the fact that it's happening on a phone. And I just think phones are very limited. So I think for the next chapter of what we're going to do, it's about continuing to build those, but also defining what the next computing platform is going to be, which is, for me, what the metaverse is all about, and this kind of immersive world and feeling of presence that you can have with another person. I mean, you're never going to feel a super deep sense of presence with someone on a phone, but that's like the holy grail. If we can deliver that through glasses or a headset, then like that's what I'm going to dedicate the next 10 or 15 years of my life to.
That's different.
But like, I don't know, my outlook though on what what types of things I want to focus on. I mean, I'm curious how this has changed as you've grown in your career too. But like for me, I don't know, for the first maybe like 15 years of building the company, I was really just
Damn, it's
like
taking you 15 years
solely
to say
focused
that.
on like, let's connect more people. Let's grow this community to be bigger and bigger. Let's grow the business to be bigger and bigger. And now, I obviously care about that. I mean, I want to continue seeing these things thrive. But I think about my life more now in terms of projects that I want to take on like a decade-long basis. And there's some things at work, right? So like building out the metaverse and with VR and AR and building out the whole developer community and creator community around that. I view that as 10, maybe if it takes longer, 15-year project, but that's like something that I just want to kind of dedicate myself to. Done a lot of stuff on the philanthropy side where I just like, it's been really cool getting a chance to work with my wife Priscilla on this. It just like opened up a whole new side of our relationship where like, it's like we were partners and now we also get to work together, and she's brilliant, and she is a doctor and just understands so many more things about biological science than I do, and I can bring this whole engineering perspective, and like we learn so much from doing that together. But basically, our philanthropy, I mean, the long-term goal is to basically create tools for the scientific community to enable them to either be able to cure, prevent, or manage all diseases with this century. And I think that's possible. I mean, it's but not within the decade, but within a century. So, for that, we're taking on a bunch of kind of 10-year projects to just sort of be able to observe different things about human biology working that haven't been seen before. So like one example is we're working on this imaging institute, an imaging project where we want to be able to, and you have like microscopes today and they can see stuff, but it's like pretty hard to see things that are going on like inside your body, right? So you're blocked by the other tissue that's in the way. But now, through a combination of different techniques, you can use this like cryo-EM technique where you can like take certain tissue out of a person, and it still will be. I mean, there are techniques where some of the tissue will still be alive for some period of time, even though it's obviously going to die because it's been removed from you. And you can look at that under a really powerful microscope.
Is he talking about the Y chromosome now?
Over time to be able to kind of extrapolate from what you've seen in very high resolution in the tissue that you've removed from the body to now being able to, okay, even though there's like optical and physical limits on what you can see with a microscope in a body, you can use all this data that's been generated in AI to effectively be able to see different cells interacting. Like no one has ever seen a synapse, a neuron like fire and what it looks like in the synapse of a brain before, like in a living organism. But I kind of think my engineering perspective on this is like, how are you going to debug a system or help solve it if you can't like step through the code, right? Like one line at a time and like see everything that's happening, right? If you want to really understand what's going on in the brain, you need to see that, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's the kind of project that we're doing in on the philanthropy side. So that's pretty cool too, right? But it's like a different kind of thing. So over time, I've sort of broadened out. It's not just for the first 10 years or so of the company. It was so all-consuming that I like really couldn't do much else, and I wasn't that well-rounded of a person. I think having a family changes that. I think it sort of forces you to become a little more balanced. But now I'd say there's like projects at work. There's project in philanthropy. There's also just personal stuff that I just really enjoy, like building up our ranch to be self-sustaining and like 100% like off the grid and being able to grow all the stuff that we want there and like raise our own cattle. And I think that's like a cool, fun project too, right? So I at this point I sort of define meaning in my life more by getting to work with people who I really like on a different set of things and just get to learn from doing a bunch of different things. But I mean, I'm curious how that's kind of shifted in your life as you've grown in your career too. I mean, it's...
Well, I think what you're dealing with is you have so much success that you're comfortable enough for you to not think about just success and to only think about growing the business. Instead, you're thinking about projects that are fascinating to you, which is the ultimate form of success, right? Could you actually focus on the things that you're really interested in, whether it's in philanthropy or whether it's in like personal projects and hobbies or just business ideas that you might not even think are like the most financially viable. They're just fascinating to you. I think that's amazing. I think that I would love to see that in more people, because I think so many people just get caught up in the game of resources and numbers, and they just want to grow numbers and grow and have more money and have bigger toys and have bigger this and bigger that, and it's a trap. And I think sometimes people are caught in that trap when they're ahead of the game. They're winning the game. They've won the game, but yet they're still like sucked into it, and they never really branch off and find things that are deeply fulfilling to them. And so very unfortunate, because that's the trap of the businessman. The businessman gets consumed by just wealth. They get consumed by success of the company, eternal growth, and it's a real trap. I have a similar perspective in that I don't think about my show in terms of how it grows or how it does well. I just do what I like to do, and I think as much about archery and jiu-jitsu and playing pool and automobiles. I think about a lot of different things. I don't just think about the podcast. And when I do the podcast, the very fortunate thing that I have is that it's who I talk to is entirely based on whether or not someone's willing to talk to them or whether or not I'm interested in talking to them. So that's all it is. There's no external pressure. So it never feels like a job. It always like, oh, Mark Zuckerberg. I'd love to talk to Mark. He seems like an interesting guy. I don't like the way you sip water, though. When you're sipping water in the Senate, you're sipping water like a robot.
I mean,
Let me see you take a real drink.
I mean,
go ahead. Like
honestly, that's the Senate testimony is not exactly an environment that is set up to accentuate the humanity of the subject.
It's quite the opposite, right?
I don't know. I mean, if you're up there for 6 or 7 hours, you're gonna make some face that's worth making a meme out of. But,
right, and then they're just gonna only concentrate on that, and that's gonna be the big deal. But so I'm just fortunate that I can do this and the appeal of the show, I think, I mean, if I had to think about it, I don't think about it too much, honestly. But if I thought about it, I think the appeal of the show is that I'm actually interested in what the guest has to say, and it's because those are the people I've chosen.
Yeah.
Whether it's I'm talking to a scientist or a philosopher or an athlete or you or anybody, I'm interested. I'm genuinely curious, and if I wasn't, I wouldn't do it. And so because of that, I think it translates to the people at home, and it becomes, it resonates with people.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say paradox. I'm not sure if it's a paradox, but I think that there actually is a feedback loop between those things, I would guess, though. Right? It's like you're saying that you don't care as much about the viewership or the listenership of the show, but to some degree, because you're following your curiosity, you probably are producing a more interesting show that more people want to watch.
Yeah.
I'd bet that for me, if I were, solely focused on just turning the crank on the business, it would probably incrementally grow. But I think the way that people deliver these discontinuous entrepreneurial results is by investing in things that other people don't believe in yet and having conviction around things like that. So, I mean, I'm not focused on the metaverse primarily because I think there's some near-term business opportunity. I actually think we're going to lose a lot of money for a long time on this massive breadth of things that we're working on that we talked about before. But I mean, I think that if we do good work on this, I think we should be positioning ourselves quite well for the future. And I do care about winning for all of our employees and our shareholders and stuff like that too. I mean, that obviously matters because we have all these awesome people who are actually doing the work.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brilliant gamble, but it's also a very well-informed gamble. Like what you're doing is, and you're not just gambling, you're innovating. So it's a really cool place to be. But what you're saying and what you're talking about is authentic focus and interest. And I think today in this world where there's so much bullshit, it's so hard to know what's real and what's not real. people value they value authenticity rather. They value it in a really unique way. And when someone can create a service or a social media platform or something where like people really believe that the people behind it are trying to make it the best thing possible, and they're not just trying to grow it, you know, forever and make it constantly get bigger and make more money, and they're also genuinely trying to innovate, and they're genuinely trying to expand into this new realm of the metaverse, and they're genuinely trying to moderate content in a thoughtful way. Like that resonates with people. It's very important.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of the reasons why it's so big. And I think that applies to many, many, many things. But I think people are oftentimes very short-sighted, and they're only thinking about growth. They're thinking about constant, never-ending growth, and they're not necessarily thinking about, why am I doing this in the first place?
Yeah.
What if I didn't have to do this anymore? What if I had so much money that I could do whatever I wanted? Would I still do this? And why would I do it? And how would I do it differently? How would I do it differently if I wasn't thinking about just money? I was thinking in terms of like big picture things and making it more enjoyable, making it more thrilling to me, making it more exciting. You know, and I think that we're very fortunate, you and I, in that we have the ability to take those kind of choices. And I think that kind of freedom is probably one of the most important freedoms for the Western person that's listening to this. Like, that is not confined in a communist country. I mean, you know, there's obviously a lot bigger problems that they have. But like, you're in a position where you can make your own choices. Like, what would be the best choice to make? Well, the best choice to make is to actually follow your interests. Like, what is actually fascinating to you? And for you, the fact that you're really interested in like health and philanthropy and those things, as well as also interested in the metaverse and interested in AR and VR and all these different modalities, all these different ways to express it, and how enriching it is to people's lives. It's fucking cool.
Just trying.
Well, you're succeeding, man. I mean, it's obvious. It's pretty dope. And I think we're like 3 hours in, so we could wrap it up here.
All right.
Thank you for coming. It was really cool to meet you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate all the things you're doing and what you're saying. And I'm so glad you're into martial arts now, too. It's great.
Awesome.
Killer.
Yeah,
I'm
no, it's
glad
great
you
to
promote
get
it.
a chance to do this.
Yeah, let's do it again sometime, man.
Let's do it.
Whenever you have some new crazy shit coming out, and whenever take things to a new next level.
All right.
Come on in. We'll talk.
Let's do it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.
That's what happens when you try to go in deep on somebody shallow, or somebody who is intentionally being shallow. Bunch of watered down BS. Wake up, brother. They finally finished a whole bunch of word salad. Hey, I don't blame you, Snowman. I don't blame you one bit. Come back to us. We'll have Tony track you down, man. Where'd you go? They melted your brain, dude. Hey, wake up. You gotta wake up and turn this thing off. Close us out with a song. I think Mr. Roboto would be pretty good. Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. You gotta come back. Come back. come back to us, man. Close us out with a song. I'd do it, but I had to send my guitar in and get a new neck put on it. Yeah, hello. There we go. Come back to us. Can you hear me? Mr. Man of the Snow. Hello, hello. You ready to go? I'm trying to hit that snooze button.
Yelp, yelp, yelp. And that was that. We're going to call this one a done show. I'm awake, Cyber. I'm awake. I couldn't help it. They put me to sleep. I'm tired. I need to get some sleep. Thanks, everybody, for suffering through this one with me. We'll see y'all next time. Oh, shit. Where am I? Yeah. Deuces. I'm out. Oh, I gotta go.